think that the opportunity exists now to be able to build out a roadmap just for medical products and be able to come back to Rob. And as I was saying before you came back in the room, I am not familiar, but I will become familiar with how we prioritize the features you asked for. And we're early enough in the process of product management here around medical products and about the platform. We're early enough in the process to be able to affect that, to be able to have an impact on that, so that you get visibility to what you asked for and how it's prioritized and what's the methodology we use to be able to define those features. And so I'll find that out and get back to you on that. And I think that going forward, the areas that we're focused on, I think corporate-wide, are compliance and quality. Compliance and quality are strategically the areas that we aim at a lot with regard to defining where the market's going, defining product development, how to improve overall quality and speed of quality execution, how to be able to permeate it through a company, all the challenges of running a quality app or a quality function in manufacturing, especially with compliance as well. So those are some of the things, those are the overall priorities that we have going on at a strategic level. But what's so valuable about, I think, today is to be able to go around the room and listen to what you want and what you are seeing that you need in the apps and what you aren't getting and that you want to get and that what you need for the future. And so I'll take these notes, aggregate them together, go back to Rob, and we'll define a priority and we'll define the methodology of how we define a priority, which will be good, not just first in, first out, but how do we weight those elements, because that's really critical for product management. And then from there, we'll go and build a roadmap and share that with you and have this be a collaborative exercise, be a very open collaborative exercise.
I'm sorry, can I get your name again?
Louis, Louis, Columbus, Columbus.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my title is principal, as I joked before. I intermediate between marketing and product management, and I do a lot of content generation and work with Steve on market planning, things like that. I was a former analyst at AMR Research for several years on sell-side e-commerce, distributor order management systems, the core aspects of what they do, ERP and supply chain research. And so when they were acquired by Gartner, I chose to stay out west and went to work at Syncom for several years, and also Plex. I worked at Plex for a while. My role there in product management, it became apparent that I was asked to go back to Detroit, and I said no. So I stayed out west. And so yeah, met up with Steve and the team here, started doing some freelance blogging for him, worked on a lot of different marketing projects on the side, and then the opportunity came on to join full time, and that's where I joined. So that's my background. So why don't we just go around the room and we can just briefly introduce ourselves, and then I think once we do that, let's go ahead and launch into a discussion about what are the other elements that you want to see improvement in today in your apps today, and then from there we can go into a future discussion. So,
And could you all remind me anyway of what products your companies make? Because I'm
That's a good idea.
that's
Talk about the companies a little bit.
So I'm Glenn Metz from LSI Solutions. I'm the ERP project manager there is my title. We are a manufacturer of disposable medical devices. We manufacture not only all of our finished goods, but also our sub-assemblies. We are starting to do some molding in-house now of some of our plastic parts. We buy the majority of our plastic parts from another IQMS customer, which is kind of a small world. But obviously, if you're...
Is that, I know who that is, I think. Who's the vendor?
Alliance Precision Plastics.
Oh, there's another IQMS user who's a plastics manufacturer.
There's about 1,000 of them.
But that we use, yeah.
My boss got delayed getting here, shocking. So yeah, we use Alliance and actually Empire Precision too, who is another IQMS customer, is one of our secondary vendors. When you talk about in terms of us and customers of IQMS, we have been live now for 5 years. And our biggest concerns, at least in the medical industry, would be we're not completely convinced that your Part 11 compliance is strong enough. The quality modules could use quite a bit of work. We don't have a really meaningful way of getting an electronic device history record out of your software. And that's really what we've got. Another problem with SPC inspections where it doesn't tie into the user who's actually logged in. And that's really about it related to the medical device industry and compliance that I would like to talk about. So I think I stopped talking about the company, but we basically sell products to cardiac surgeons for doing, our biggest product is for doing knot replacement on valve replacements or valve repairs. If you've known anybody that's had one of those done in the last 3 years, they probably have like 12 of our titanium fasteners in their chest. So we sell a ton of that product all over the world to surgeons.
So I heard you mention plastic, so titanium too, like how many different sort of medium do you produce in?
Very different, various kinds of steel. We buy steel tubes that we use to make our tubes to make, that go into our products. Our products basically have. Actually, let me show it. I won't use the screen. I'll just go to our website and show the pictures. Right. So this is a little titanium fastener. We actually buy this from a company. Oh, I lost it now. Oh. So this is our core knot device basically. So we manufacture this metal tube. So we buy that tube, we cut it in-house on a Swiss turn, and then we EDM it. And then we clean it like 3 times and we inspect it 3 times. That's like a 10-step process just to make that stupid tube. There's a bunch of other metal components in the end of it that we either mill, EDM, or handwork, or do on a Swiss turn. But like these plastic components here, these handle halves and the lever, we buy it from Alliance, and they print it for us and everything like that. There's some plastic components inside of here that we buy from another vendor, the packaging and stuff like that. But pretty much everything metal that goes into our devices, we make, with the exception of that knot that was on there. We buy from a company out of Long Island, Press-A-Part, I think it is, who is a world-class maker of small. I mean, that knot is literally big. I could get you the exact dimensions, but it's tiny. We're actually in the process of qualifying manufacturing it internally. We just bought this $750,000 Makino mill or something like that. They had to pour a special concrete pad to put it on and all sorts of craziness in our building. So yeah. So that's the majority of our products there.
Cool. Thank you.
We do some other stuff too, but that's our bread and butter. That's what's paying my salary right there.
Hence the difficulty in the whole scheduling thing for the assembly side.
Yeah, so I mean it's not really specific to our industry. It's a problem for us as a manufacturer, is that so that tube that's in there, that's that molded tube, it starts off as a piece of rod stock, and we kit the work order, so there's our first step. And then, the rod stock, they get 10 rods, they make, or 20 rods, I think, and they make 646 tubes out of the rod stock. So it goes into the Swiss turn. The Swiss turn cuts it, trims it, cuts some holes in it, comes off the Swiss turn, it gets cleaned. There's process step 3. After the cleaning step, it gets an inspection. It then gets over to wire EDM, a cleaning step, an inspection, handwork, inspection. Handwork, yeah, they tumble it and it gets cleaned in the tumbling, so they don't have to clean it again at that point. Inspection, it then gets overmolded on the end. There's a purple tip on the end of that. It then gets overmolded and finally inspected. So that's an 11-step bomb that goes through our cleaning lab 3 times, our metals lab twice, and our quality inspection steps 3 times. And the scheduling module, not a fan.
Yeah.
Finite scheduling doesn't handle that well. And we have a long discussion planned about this tomorrow.
What time tomorrow?
I don't know, we're sticking around for another day. My boss and our executive vice president are coming out here tomorrow to
Okay.
have some meetings with other people at IQMS, so.
Okay.
Product management team for the most part, and yeah.
I'd like to definitely be part of that if I can make it,
Okay.
just to hear what's going on. With regard to the quality modules, you mentioned that those weren't meeting your expectations. Which quality modules are you using in
None anymore.
anymore?
Oh, you tried them and you backed off?
Yeah, we went to a different solution for document control. And now we manage our BOM changes through there. Basically, it's done as a paper system. Well, it's not a paper system, but it's electronic. It's a web-based platform.
What was wrong with document control?
Would you like me to start the list?
That bad, huh? Do you guys use document control?
Rejected submissions are lost. You need to assign approval authority by document type or categories. You can't do that. There's no way to change a document, a BOM, and an item master all in the same ECO. It's a ECO issue. There's no way to basically collaborate on a document. Our system that we use now, it's called Grand Avenue Software. They literally, our quality team implemented it in a month, and it just stinking works. So when we submit, if you submit a document in GAS for collaboration, you basically submit it. You select what type of document it is, and then you submit your document for collaboration, and you pick who's going to collaborate on it. And they open up the document, they make their changes, they make their notes, they upload a new version of it. Next person looks at it, goes on, you can collaborate all at the same time, which is something that you cannot do with Doc Control and Enterprise IQ. Because you have to check the document out, nobody else can edit it at the same time. It's lacking in that functionality. So then once you get through all of your collaborators, you get a task back to you that says, review the collaborations, take their notes, whatever notes they made, if they marked up the document, review the markups, make the necessary changes, and then you submit it for final approval. Based on what type of document it is that you selected, the system automatically routes it to all the right people for approval. And they go in, they open it up, they read it, they sign it off, they approve it right in the web form, and you're done.
Do you have any problem with using an outside system? Is there any way that you tie or keep track of what's going on in your document system?
So that's a struggle for us now. Yeah, absolutely. That's a brainstorming idea right now at our company is how do we manage what's in one system and compare it to another.
Sure.
One of the reasons I asked a question yesterday about their BIX, their business intelligence solution, and pulling in other data sets is maybe we can use this as some way to compare what's
Sure.
happening in the two of them. The way that we get documents into Enterprise IQ, and I could actually show this, is in Enterprise IQ, we do have a document repository. It's restricted, only our quality, one of them, only our quality people can get in there to add and remove. And the documents that they're uploading are just URLs that go out to our other system and open up the document as a read-only user, so they can be linked to and touched that way.
In real time, so nothing can change rev, and while you're looking at it, you're looking at the
Yep.
back in your doc system in real time.
Yep, you're looking at
Yeah.
the current version of that document in the live system. So if it's if it literally the new document got released today, and you're working on that, you're working on, not that they print the work instructions out because our work centers are stupid, but if you were to go and look at on a BOM and look at a process and want to know the documents attached to it, it would be as current and up to date as possible because that link just goes right out. It's a pretty clever solution, and they basically did it because the document control system in Enterprise IQ is garbage.
We did a similar thing for our documents. We use Master Control as our
So
outside.
you use a side system, right?
Yeah. But one of our IT guys was able to create a link. We put it actually on the documents tab of every item, particularly for our buy items that our purchasers need to make sure that the spec isn't out on for revision change before they place a PO. So our guys have created a hyperlink into Master Control so they can look and see if the revision of that is actually out on ECO or is it not. So they can we noticed that we didn't. I mean, I'm hearing now why it didn't work for them. We just already had Master Control and it worked well for us and it's pretty entrenched in our processes. So the thought of switching over is still an option, but we're pretty almost all of our, our ECO process lives in that. All of our docs are controlled in there. We're even using the same process to do our NCMRs and our CAPAs. Everything gets, what's called an info card in the software,
Yeah.
and we use that to track our
So
the
it's,
vast majority of our quality system.
yeah, so it's completely ingrained into your overall process, so why pull
We
it out,
could
especially
change
when-
it. The other fear is if we were to go all completely into IQ, then when the day comes that we leave IQ now, not only do we have to, qualify a new ERP system, we also then maybe have to find a new document system.
Are you anticipating that? Just curious.
You always assume every 8 years or so that it's, depending if you continue to grow, that it's probably time to look at another solution, so.
That's what we see in our stats. Our stats are every 7 to 8 years, people reevaluate their ERP systems.
Yeah.
And some of them are jumping, excuse me, to cloud. A lot of them are staying on premise though. A lot of these small single plant operations are staying on premise, and we're seeing cloud at about a 30% uptake. But no, the on-premise ERP business is alive and well. But yeah, that's about exactly what we're seeing.
And we are one single plant, well, one facility, one E-plant, but our facility, we've got 6 buildings on the site, so. We don't have to deal with any multi-currency or anything like that. We do sell our products overseas, but they pay us in US dollars, so.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. We sell, and we don't, and so the other difference with us is that we're a make to stock manufacturer, not a make to order manufacturer. So we're not getting a customer order for 50,000 of something. We make we cut work orders for 600 of this every week and put them into inventory. And if we don't get 600, if we get 575 or whatever, it's just kind of the way that we roll. It's okay. We know we're going to have quality fallout in the process of. So.
How many different items do you have?
Finished good items that we sell, I think it's 49 products that we distribute, something like that.
Wow.
We probably have about 400.
In total
Yeah,
inventory, it's
thousands.
like
Yeah,
1,000.
We have thousands, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
But-
1,200.
Yeah, but for us, those 49 products are that's what we sell. I mean, we don't.
Mhm.
People aren't coming to us and say, "Give us this." It's no, we offer this product, and you're either going to buy it or not. And we sell direct to hospitals and health systems, and overseas we sell to distributors who then distribute our product overseas.
EDHR requirements overseas, are they significant or not? Do you get hit up for EDHR data from?
Electronic device history record.
Yeah,
I don't know. If we are, I've never been asked about it. I would assume if we did, if they were looking for that information, we would find it. We're still a paper-based system. I don't know if we're ever gonna not be, at least utilizing Enterprise IQ now. There's functionality that we need to do and, that the system just doesn't support properly, so.
And I think that's one of the big overall hurdles is the whole electronic validations. I mean, productivity says go paperless. We're a paper-based system as well because it's easy compared to electronic and all validations and then the updates. And I think that's the big hurdle. I mean, whoever can crack that nut in the medical industry for an ERP solution, I think is gonna sell a lot of systems. Because
Yeah.
it's got to go there, to keep up with other industries, but what was it, just Minitab, the version 18, or, 2018 version or whatever that just came out, they actually have a validation program that comes with it so that you can validate the software.
Really?
Validate Minitab
Yep.
for use?
Yep, but there's a big disclaimer. If you're an FDA registered facility, you cannot use that. All other industries
So-
can use it, and it's
Well,
like,
that's
well,
the purpose
yeah.
of it though. Well, I mean, we're mainly a supplier. We only have a couple of medical devices
okay,
that we're registered for and one
Yeah.
site that is registered with the FDA. But we're a supplier to a lot of medical device manufacturers. So we had the FDA in to our main facility, 5-day audit, 2-day
Mhm.
notice, and then a 2-day audit at another facility. And we did pretty well. They were more looking to get our customer,
Yeah.
you know, because they were under a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah.
So that's why they came in by us. So we were walking that fine line between not throwing our customer under the bus and
That's gotta be
Yeah.
tough, I would
showing
imagine.
that we got everything under
Yeah.
control.
Yeah,
And that's usually our situation as well. It's our customers that are being investigated.
they
But our
go to the, they
customers-
go to the
They'll
vendors
just
next,
show up
right?
To the plant and.
And our customers are not clear on what level they want our software to be validated to. You know, they're very, very unclear. You know, they'll bring up things and our director of quality will be like, you're the medical device manufacturer, not us. You know, we're not held to that level of standard, but what can we do to help you, you know, since you have to be validated, and then, you know, each customer is a little bit different on how
Yeah.
they'll handle that.
Yeah, even the Fortune 500 company, I mean, they're so different in what they require. Some are going so overboard, it's like, this is ridiculous.
Right,
We're just gonna charge you for doing this, and they don't seem to go away, and then you get another large company, it's kind of like fairly minimal. So it is unclear out there.
I think there's a fear of government intervention at any point in any of in this industry where
Oh,
they
yeah.
can just come in and just,
I worked at GE Healthcare and we had our,
Oh, boy.
you know, our Salt Lake City facility shut down for 2 years. I mean, we deployed 80% of the people in that plant just to do documentation for 2 years. We sent a ton of people from corporate out there to do documentation for 2 years. You know, they estimated we're losing over $1 million a day with that facility shut down, and that was 2 years. That
but
we
how
were
did it
shut
get, how
down.
did it get that bad, is the question, they just,
Well, my personal opinion is we had a CEO that came from sales.
Oh.
And all the Jeff Immel and all the
ship
quality that we had built up after when he was first at GE Healthcare and then GE Corporate, he slowly eroded the quality team, the head count, it's kind of like, okay, you look like you're in a good state, why do we need so many? And although quality kept giving warning after warning after warning, and then finally it got to a level that, you know, we had some warnings from the FDA and I guess didn't take them seriously enough, and then we were under a consent decree and shut down the facility. And then of course you're under the radar at all of your facilities and product lines at the FDA once you get that far.
you know, we used to have a saying at our plant, which is kind of turning away from this thought now, but it used to be that quality basically ran our manufacturing operation. If they said, no, don't do it, we would stop doing stuff. And I think in this industry, you need to have that strong of a quality system. I mean, not necessarily a quality system, but the people that, you know, the leadership in that group need to be willing to say to the people at your company, no, you can't do that this way.
Yeah, till our company placed the quality people at the plant level under the plant manager, and to me, that's like the fox guarding the hen house.
They've got to be under
Instead
different.
of a central
We've just
organization,
reorged that
dotted
way too, and
line.
I'm curious to see if that's
Oh.
not the fox watching the hen.
Oh, it was awful. Like, we had this quality manager who was really good, but under the thumb of
It's not
an
right.
unreasonable plant manager. When she left, she had it, and then the plant manager got fired. And then our corporate director of quality had to step in and kind of help out with both roles, quality and production. There were customer concerns that were out there for like a year that had never been answered. And it's like, no, the plant manager told us, don't worry about that. Focus on this other stuff. I mean, it was a disaster, but they still haven't learned their lesson.
Yeah, quality needs to have its own management. It can't be in
Yeah.
operations.
It's horrible
Yeah, it
reporting
just
to the
cannot do
plant
that, right?
manager because they can't do what's right. They can push so far and then.
I guess in other industries maybe, but in our industry, I just don't.
No.
I don't know how you can do that.
Right,
It
and
makes no sense
and
to
we're
me.
about 40% medical, I think probably about 28% automotive, and then consumer products, electronics, you know, a mix of others, but yeah, I don't agree with it at all, and I can't believe we haven't learned our lesson.
Yeah, I mean, if you sold exclusively on government contracts, right, you wouldn't have your compliance department and your operations in the same silo, right? You just
Right.
wouldn't do that. Like, it needs to be the same thing when you're talking about medical devices. Maybe companies just don't get that.
Right.
Aerospace certainly does though. Aerospace is pretty much mandated to do that now because of the Y-22 program and because of the cost overruns there. So quality definitely has a pretty much of a controlling stake in the ability to say no or yes or no with regard to
Yeah.
shipping different products. At Northrop, the quality director shut down an F-16 replacement gear product line and just unilaterally just shut it down because the data that was coming back from the overall SPC charts and everything were showing that these were defective landing gear. And there was a tremendous amount of pressure to hit the Navy contract dates, and the guy just dug his heels in and said, absolutely not. They went out and tested them, and like there was just a massive failure rate, and they completely had to go back and re-engineer
And redo
the
the whole
production
thing.
process.
Yeah.
And the Navy wrote this guy a letter. The director of quality at Northrop and El Segundo wrote him a letter and said, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for digging your heels
Yeah.
in on quality, because you just saved us millions of dollars.
Well, I think you have to find a good balance.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
There-
we have a plant level quality manager that came in one of our plants right now, and he has this attitude. I don't know, it's very strange, like, oh, if we get that finding, we deserve to have that finding. Well,
no.
no, don't air your dirty laundry. You
No.
enforce
Right.
it internally, but to the
Yeah.
external, to our customers, you have to remember who you work for and who you don't lie. You don't do
Right.
anything unethical,
Right.
but hit that quality stuff internally ahead of time so that you don't get put in that situation. It's hard to find a pragmatic quality person that still
Yes.
adheres to an ethical approach, but does what's right internally versus, what you communicate to the customer and when and.
I think the best thing that's happened at Northrop and some of these other, and especially at Boeing, is they're coming down on the side of the customer, and they're using Six Sigma and DMAC to come down on the side of the customer, whether the customer is the U.S. Navy, any foreign government buying jets or avionics, and they say, the quality manager will come in and say, look, based on what's going on here, yeah, it could ship, but we need to tell them, where we are here. Whereas in places like Northrop, where there was tremendous pressure in the plant because of cost overruns to be able to ship, the quality manager just unequivocally went like, no, these things will fail in the field, so we have to just pull back. But that's a different industry, and the whole aspect around audits of DoD audits and everything like that have a completely different level of, I think, interaction, first of all, with the PMO organization to look at how things are scheduled, was time allowed, and then also look at the overall data set. But in medical devices, what's an audit? What's it like to go through an audit from the FDA?
So at healthcare, I was always in the back room of the audit because I wasn't the quality function. I was supporting IT systems in the background, and I was not present in the audits that we've had. Although my husband is the director of quality that handled the 5-day audit, and he gives everybody a very clear picture. Gather your data ahead of time, have your documents. Only answer exactly what they ask.
Yeah.
Don't add anything on, don't open up any doors that you want them to go down that path. And be familiar with the FDA regs so that if they're trying to push beyond that, where the limits are and you can say that's not applicable to this audit.
Wow.
So he takes a very clear stance, and he got away with no findings, no observations at all.
That's
And he
outstanding.
was he was on a call with the customer 3 times a day during that audit because they were very panicky because the FDA was in all of their facilities. But it's interesting, it's that we make the little plastic parts that go on IV bags, so we supply to Pfizer, who's Herspera, they've been bought out 1 million times. But now there's only 2 main manufacturers of these IV bags in the US, and the other one has run into some quality issues, and now all of a sudden the FDA has backed off on Pfizer. Produce as much as you can. We can't run out of IV bags in the
Yeah.
US.
There's a shortage.
So even quality is relative.
Yeah,
You
you know, is it, yeah, how bad do they need it?
Quality is a relative, that's
Yeah.
Well, in a case like that,
That wouldn't fly.
we're gonna pound you. Oh,
I get it,
the
right?
other we can't. We can't let the other people move
You're
forward.
not
So
the
you
lesser of
guys
two evils, go
produce
have
as
at
much,
it, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Produce as much. As
So after you went through that FDA audit, did your company emerge stronger for that? Were you able to turn into a competitive advantage at all? Or was it more validation of, hey, we're on the right track?
Well, no, the scary part is that he just got moved into a director of engineering role because he can span operations, engineering, and quality, and now they've moved somebody in who sat in on that audit, but I don't think really learned some of the skills. So I don't feel comfortable where we're at as a quality function in our organization. But, we're big, but we're small enough to where if we would have an FDA audit again, they'd pull in whoever is needed to make it happen and run it. But now the chances, since we've passed it so successfully, of them coming back, probably not for another 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
we had an audit, an unannounced inspection / audit I think about 3 to 4 years ago, and I also was not really heavily involved with that at all, but we have a similar action plan, which is, you know, the people, if you're gonna be in the room, somebody from the quality department is going to be with you at all times. You're not gonna speak to anybody directly, without somebody in the room. We only talk to the person in the room, we don't talk about anything else, and
Right.
it's very, when they ask you questions, if you can answer with a yes or no, always answer with a yes or no,
Right.
and be as short and direct as you possibly
Right,
can.
don't volunteer anything,
Nope.
don't open up and show them the system, if
Nope.
they ask for a specific piece of paper, go get it.
Go get it.
Yeah,
You know, that's why that's what I learned at GE Healthcare, you always set up a really good back room with all the supporting people that you need.
Yeah.
But nobody interfaces with the quality auditor other than the main person handling the audit who's very savvy and experienced. Unless they specifically ask to bring somebody in, but that person is right there with
Yeah.
them.
what could we do from a software standpoint to make it easier to pass an audit? What are some of the things that we could do?
So I know that they're supposedly Trevor's gonna come over and show this is the new lot track and trace
Yeah.
functionality in the system. That would be a huge deal to us. Being able to say, go back to this raw material lot and see everything that it went into, and then every single customer that went to. That to us would be a huge deal.
And what version is this gonna be in?
I'm sure it's a version that none of us are gonna wanna run. Probably, I think
16?
I heard 16, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know, but I would presume
Yeah.
because it's in the future, yeah.
Okay.
Lot track and trace would be version, let's verify with Trevor, version 16.
And then now, I don't know, is that coming out? Like, do I need the quality modules to get that, or is that gonna run as part of inventory or something?
That better be part of just the
I
standard
would
freaking
think would be part
modules.
of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Inventory.
It's a web-based thing he was showing. It's actually like a little web applet that you'd select your criteria and then it just and it throws something out there. So maybe it wouldn't need to be a version thing if it's web-based.
Well, depending
Again, yeah, is
on
it going and
backend
grabbing your
table
data, pulling it
structure.
back
Yeah,
out,
fair
like
enough.
almost like
If
the,
it needs,
Well,
now
it's
if
gotta
it's
be
using
pulling
all
everything
existing,
from Translog, right?
but if it's,
I mean, it's
I don't know.
it's gotta.
yeah, I mean, where else is it gonna pull it from? That's the data that knows what it went into. and
Yeah,
all
I mean
that.
anytime you pull up locations in history,
But are
it's-
they doing revisions to Translog and how the data's stored in the background?
They shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hope not. That's basically every single transactional history of everything in your system. If they're gonna make changes to Translog, they're basically screwing every single customer who uses that for in any regulated industry. So I don't think that they would touch that.
What other additional features could we do? Could we add that we don't have now that would help you with an audit? Is there a way, like, let's say an FDA navigator or something around that to say, here, we'll prepare, you just have to basically prepare a data set for the FDA and say, here it is.
You don't know what they're gonna ask for, though, that's the thing, they could ask for anything, even though I don't use a solution, I assume as long as there's a real simple way to search for and look up documents, device history records,
Yeah.
anything electronic that they're gonna ask for at the tip of a hat, that if I can spend 2 minutes finding it versus 30 minutes finding it, they're gonna be a lot happier, right? I mean, the faster you
Yeah.
get the information they want, the happier they are.
Yeah, the problem for us would be, hey, show me this work order for this product, is that we can't get that information out of Enterprise IQ now. We've gotta go over to a filing cabinet and pull out a work order packet that's this thick. So,
So they're not looking for just the work order, they're looking for a history of what happened on that
who
work
did what,
order.
Yeah.
who did what when,
Yeah, cause we
who
do all
did-
manual.
Yeah, we actually have
packets
paper,
outside
but then
the
we
system.
scan every work order into master control.
Yeah, we
and
should
attach
be
it,
doing that.
So
We're
that
not.
when someone wants to, we can pull up our batch record, look at, do a search on our batch record in master
Yeah.
control. Find all the attached documents that were involved in the manufacturing process and pull them up right there on the screen.
Yeah, if you could have the concept of.
That takes a lot of time to do,
of-
but
First, the job packet, which is the template of the docs you need for the final batch record, and then an actual batch record template, or solution,
Yeah,
where you can pull everything into it for that final, cause ours is all manual.
I think one of the problems that we had also with IQMS's document control solution was that if we tried to print if we were to print a work order packet that was back in time and the documentation number has changed, when that work order was done, it was likely done on a different revision of the document than what the revision of the document is now, and I don't think IQMS supports that. Like if you were to look at a
Like
past
what
work
was the
order,
doc
what
packet?
was the
back
active
then?
doc at that date and time?
Right.
Like if that could, if the system could do that in a more efficient way without having to go into doc control and look at it. You know, I should be able to go, cause that process is out there. The process has changed, but it still has the document attached,
You know
but the
what's
document's
interesting,
been
and,
revved.
and again, this is a workaround, but one of the documents we print with our documentation packet is all the documents that were in the doc packet
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And the users actually
And it lists the
verify
revision?
and check off, yes, that
Huh.
all those docs they were supposed to get and they physically have them. And so that same document gets scanned and is in the DHR. So I mean, again, it's a very manual way to do it, but that would show you historically, here's what the doc packet looked like
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah,
Because
so,
here's everything that was in
They
it.
would do the same thing, so it's got the
That's
doc, the
interesting.
revisions and everything
Yeah.
in it.
yeah, cause we don't
It's kind of a
print our
master sheet.
documents with our work order packet. They review them if they need them. Either through Enterprise IQ, through assembly data by looking at the documents on a process, or they're printed in a clean room, but everyone knows, I mean, that document is only good on the day that it's basically printed. So, yeah, it's an interesting solution to have them do that, to print them all with it and send it.
Yeah. Cause we attach it all right to the bomb,
We-
everything.
And you print it?
In a
Yeah.
print with, so we create the whole folder and everything and they,
We
Track
attach
them
them to our
down.
processes
Our
instead.
quality
Okay.
people can't even flip from non-conforming to conforming to be shippable until they have completed the batch record.
Mhm.
I mean, it's causes problems because there's delays, we have stuff that can't ship because it's not shippable yet.
No,
but
us too,
that's-
yeah, we don't move stuff into a good shipping location until the C of A and CFC have been,
Oh, and ours is all
Approved and
mixed,
signed.
it's just in a non-conforming state, you know, inspection needed until, and then we flip it to, only the quality person can
yeah, we
flip
put
the
ours into a
status.
location called QC hold,
Yeah,
meaning,
we used to
finished good
till we
QC
got too
hold,
big,
you know.
and then it was a dark hole.
And then they move it out
And
into
never
a
find
release
anything.
location as they
Oh my gosh,
approve them.
yes.
yep, that's what we do, and move it into the warehouse location and then it's shippable at that point.
Trying to find something that would,
One thing that we have,
Would help
which
us.
is a concern in our process, we are primarily an OEM manufacturer. So, right, we produce stuff that doesn't have our name on it, that has Roche's name on it or Johnson and Johnson's name on it. And we have a lot of instances where we need to have two different revisions of the same finished good item on hand at the same time, and the system doesn't do that.
yes. Yeah,
Our-
it does
our-
not handle that at
Our
all.
previous system had on-off effectivity dates for revisions.
Yep.
So that you could control, you could have a Rev A and a Rev B on hand at the same time. You know, you could set Rev A to shut off at, you know, whatever, a month from now, because you had one less shipment to make at that revision. But then you could also still produce an inventory, the next revision that they've given us the changes for. So right now, as you know, you can't do that. Once you change the revision, it changes everywhere.
But isn't the
Um,
isn't the item number unique based on the item number, the rev and the class?
Correct.
Exactly.
So when our customer service department places orders, they're the one picking whether it's the item with Rev A or Rev B for for delivery to the customer.
Right, but those have to have different, you can't have the
Bonds
same item
attached.
number, you can't have the
Yeah.
same item number with a Rev A and Rev B. And our
Right,
customer hasn't
right.
changed their item number, they've just changed, say, one of the inputs, so.
Oh,
upright.
we use our own internal item number.
Yeah,
and
We do too, we
reference
try to
the
have it
customer
match the
number.
customer's
yeah,
AKA whenever
yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
Um,
ours doesn't. We have our own numbering schema. But we could have, product with 4 different revs on hand and shippable. We're only at a certain time producing the latest one. But the customer service person actually works with the customer. Hey, will you accept Rev B for this? So it doesn't even cause us a problem because we have all unique. Those are all separate item numbers, separate
Right.
bombs
Right.
for those items.
Well,
But
our
that's
problem
how
with
we
doing that is
control
if
it.
we do that, then we would lose sales history of that item number, because now we've made a new item number, so we could carry the Rev B.
Well, our item numbers, well, like I said, what makes it unique is the rev and the item number and the class. So we can still run a report on the item number, including all the revs, or we can be specific and ask for just the rev. So they're still all tied together. We know it's the same item,
Versus
just a different
two-step.
rev. That's
So,
why,
then but you still have to manually concatenate all the numbers and go, here's what the sales dollars were for this, right, and we don't wanna do that,
Yes.
we'd like to just say, here's SKU 1, 2, 3, Rev A, And once I change it to another item, so I can have a Rev B, now I've lost that, now I gotta write some other algorithm that says combine these two items, sales products, so that when we use forecast, we, you know, we're combining, and it's just a lot of work.
So in
Yeah.
Excel, when we just get rid of the rev column, then those items all do come out as one.
Mhm.
Um,
Definitely wanna check and see if we got that on the drawing board, get that done.
The attitude has always been,
Yeah.
well, okay, from Rev A to Rev B, it's actually a different part, so give it a new part number. That's always been the attitude, and I get, you know, conceptually, from a coding standpoint,
Yeah.
yes, fine. But, you know, a lot of times this isn't our item number, it's our customer's item number. It's not our vision, it's their vision. And again, like I mentioned, something like this, just to keep the sales continuity. Because our customers can upgrade their items 2-3 times a year. And so, sure, item numbers are cheap, you can always just create a new one, they're easy. But it just makes historical tracking just more challenging.
Yeah, makes it really difficult, I think. Well, the potential for confusion increases, so, yeah, we should definitely jump on that and try to figure out a way to make that an exception and override to be able to compensate for that process and be able to engineer that in.
So let me ask you a question. You have a certain number of developers for new areas, and sure, you have the roadmaps for all the different areas, you know, the financials and the MES and how do you guys determine priorities across the different roadmaps?
That is a good question for
Because we could be,
Wisma.
I mean, you know, okay, so this is 3 hours out of our time. We could be talking about all this stuff, and you could have the best intentions in the world, but this could end up ranking really low on the totem pole unless, as a company, you guys have decided, hey, we're gonna hard hit medical device manufacturers, so this is going to the top of our list. Do you know where this stands?
Well, yeah,
priorities
just
for
before
the
you
company?
join, yeah, just before you join, I explained that I gotta work with Rob Wiersma to determine how we prioritize product features, and that I would like to be able to explain the methodology by which we do that. I doubt if it's a first in, first out type of an approach like many software companies have, but I think that we will have a ranking type of approach. There is no roadmap right now for these verticals we're talking to about these breakout areas. I talked with Rob before this event, and I said, wouldn't it be great if we had by vertical roadmap and dedicated headcount, and we could say unequivocally, by this quarter, we're gonna have this feature, and that's the goal of these sessions, to pull that data together.
What is your company's sales strategy? Who are you going after? What kind of customers?
So I've been told by Gary Nemers directly that the medical device field is their number one field for growth in the future. They see the most potential to expand in that market.
And
with
will
their
you think
software.
that'll boil down to product management? And where
It
their
has to
priorities
drive
lie?
product.
Well, you'd think so, but.
They're not gonna win more clients without a more robust system to support it.
Right, but like you said, you know, document control needs a lot of work. The quality modules need a lot of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think those are things that tie into this industry though.
It does
I
tie
mean,
in.
if you were to look at it, if you wanted to do an integrated solution, I think that having all of those things as robust as they possibly can be, and with, you know, a customer base that is, you know, believes that the system is good enough to do the job, which you and I are sitting here saying that it's not good enough to do its job.
So they brought Shelley Howard in,
Mm-hmm.
expert on the finance side to really beef up the financials. Who have they brought in for medical
Yeah.
devices
Why
on the
don't-
product
why-
management team?
Why don't they go get somebody that was an
Or
inspector
have
at the
they, or
FDA
no?
and bring that person
You
in?
know,
and
I don't
bring them
report
up?
to Rob, so I don't know what his future headcount looks like, but we can certainly find out what the plans are.
I mean, if medical is a priority, then they need a person with some
Oh, I
background
agree.
and experience
Mhm.
on
Right.
the product management team. Otherwise, I don't take it seriously that they're gonna go
Yeah,
after
somebody who's lived in
this.
QA and QC. you
Yeah,
know.
well, who comes out of them, at least a decade of product management or in the
But
industry.
in this industry though,
Yeah,
not
being-
somebody that's, it's a whole different ball of wax, talking about quality and, you know, in the medical device industry and having product management experience in that, than as to somebody that's just making a freaking widget. That's
Oh, I
going out to
agree,
somebody.
I mean, you have to have domain expertise,
Right.
and
So you can tell Gary, we're not gonna take this push for medical seriously until they hire somebody in the product management role in that space.
I agree.
okay. I think with regard to the product roadmap and, you know, a lot of the things you're talking about here, I think there's some replication and value for other segments as well.
Sure.
So in terms of the prioritization, again, I know how I would run the prioritization of it if I ran product management. And what I would do is I would look at the total available revenue by each area, and I would do ROI by feature. And I would not purely go on, too often companies get into who's the best debater for each specific product area. And that doesn't really work out well for the customers. But it's better, I think, to say, here's the ROI of each one. Here's the total available market. This is what we see. This is where it makes the most sense to put the most amount of developers. And then come back to you and say, here's our ROI analysis. This is what we see as what's going on. This is the amount of revenue we could generate. And we want to just be completely transparent. And so that's what I would do. And that's what I've done when I've run product management in other companies. And so
How many customers does IQMS lose a year?
I have no idea. No idea.
And not just because they were bought out by a bigger company, so they gotta move
Yeah.
onto their platform.
No
I
idea.
mean, leave
Actually
because of
choose to leave.
dissatisfaction.
I
Well, and I would
have-
wonder not just that in its vacuum, like, give me, 10 different ERP companies, what's their percentage customer loss?
Retention.
Just,
Yeah.
And Gary would know that from the last company he came from,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, Gary numbers probably have a pretty good handle on that number. I have no idea because I don't see the sales data like that. But no, I think point well taken with regard to getting a product manager on board under Rob. Rob's organization needs to grow. I mean, as an outsider with product management experience, I look at his organization. I realize they need more heads. They need more horsepower. With 2 people, they need to grow. And so having a medical products person there, and then also I think with Rob to define the prioritization of coming out of this meetings or these series of meetings this week, coming out with a very clear methodology of saying this is the way we're prioritizing your requirements, I think would be useful as well. And then looking at building out a roadmap for this area is something we've always talked about. Well, I've been on board about 6 weeks, and then building out in my conversations with Rob about this event, I initially asked, do you even, are you visualizing one? Is there one in your mind? And he said, really, no, we have just, we're pulling that together. Keep in mind, Rob's been on board for, I think, maybe less than 3 years. So he's pulling that together. But I think what we can do, I think what a win for the medical device customers is to get a product manager, get a roadmap, get some commitments about what the priorities are. If you agree with them or not, at least that we will be open and explain where we're going and explain the overall direction about what we need to do to continue to stay relevant in your business. So those are, I think, are the key requirements. And did you want to show us something? There's your website, obviously, yeah.
No, I was talking earlier, this would have been something nice that if we could have gotten this out of the system, but we actually had to spend hours and hours and hours of time developing. This is our work order reconciliation report. If you're an assembly manufacturer, their work order reconciliation doesn't work at all. We'll sell this to you for probably $25,000 if you guys would
we
like
had to
it.
write our own similar reconciliation.
How fun was that?
Wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Every now and then it still bites us too, where
And this is even a
something will
report.
duplicate or something depending on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a crystal report.
It's a crystal
Yeah.
report that is one gigantic SQL query to do all of this basically. So this is something that if the system would have produced this and we didn't have to, I mean, literally when I joke about spending, we'll sell it to you for $10,000, it's probably the amount of time we invested into this, maybe even more. But this goes through, so this is that molded tube I was talking about where we kit it, we go on the turn, and they're supposed to print this and sign this after every single process step to say, yes, I agree with this. So this is a situation where we're printing out and saving 10 copies of this through every single work order. That somehow we need to capture this in the system, and I guess the tasking methodology, there's no, I mean, they're doing it, but there's no sign off that says anything other than, hey, I've put this in. There's no place for a secondary verification that, yes, we've produced this many good parts. We've taken this many out of scrap. Or secondary
do you reconcile
validation.
to, like plus or minus? Like we reconcile to plus or minus 1% on a lot of our.
We reconcile 100% accuracy.
Yeah.
So we don't, so like 1%, like if you're molding or whatever, I get that. But we're talking about, we actually have physical freaking parts. So
Well, we do
it's
too,
easy
but
for us
still,
to count.
you know, but we might be labeling 200,000 or something. And so
Ye-
at some
well, so
point,
that,
you know,
yeah,
at some point, to try to reconcile it 100% every time, we'd be all day reconciling, trying to find that one label we missed somewhere, you know, on some, that maybe fell on the floor, thrown in the trash. And so we do allow for, you know, it's, even 1% is pretty darn tight on
Yeah.
some large runs. But I was just curious, yeah, what level you?
I mean, if it can be done at 100%, it is done at 100%. We will even go back and make them, they change this, or a previous step was mistasked wrong, they have to go back, reprint it, and go through and get everybody else to sign it every other further step down the line that it was done. So what they're doing on here is basically, if they had to take any extra lots, they're writing it in the column here, and then recording what happened to the lots, or what, you know, they either returned it to stock, it was a partial release, we only did part of the work order, and it goes through this process the whole way. So anytime where there's a consumption, the consumption is listed on here, the part, the lot numbers that were given to them, and you see the rejected amount here, and this is all done in the stock unit of measure on the item.
You guys
And
hard
they-
allocate
Yeah.
when you kit?
90% of stuff we
Us
hard
too.
allocate. We do
We let the
point,
floor
we do
allocate
point to
some
use.
Kanban items, but yeah.
Yeah, like we point to use like our cartons,
Sure.
our boxes, our blister trays, our seals. We just store them all right in the clean room, and when the location gets low, we've got a supervisor that can go in there and flip the
Sure.
you know, the dispo designator bin to the next bin. So, because those are things we buy in lots of, like, you know, 20, 30,000. Just keep pulling it when we need it. So,
Are any of you using serialized inventory control?
no,
Not yet.
I've heard good and bad.
Yeah, I've heard.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, I've
We
heard it can
rolled
be a
out Mexico and
nightmare, so.
Ireland in that last year, and there were so many bugs that we said, you must not have any customers using SICK. We're basically
Piloting
know,
it.
Yes, it was bad enough that we had to have Gary, Matt, Sherry, all the top leaders come on site and meet with our CEO president. Like, the issues were just, but a lot of them have been solved now, but now we're gonna be moving away from it in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that I think was true, maybe it's not anymore, or maybe Glenn, you guys have found a way around this. At the time, I had wanted to make quick inspections be part, in an effort to get a little less paperful. We wanted to have where inspections happen in line, them to be able to go in and, you know, do their quick inspect and put the results in, but there was no way to make a quick inspection required. You could have them and you could suggest that they do them, but there was no hard stop saying, no, you can't go past this without inputting your quick inspect results first.
Yeah, it would be nice if the system would prompt for that. So the trigger for us is the fact that they have to follow the work instruction for what they're working on, and the work instruction calls for an inspection, so they have to do it on that step.
Agreed.
Or on our BOM, we have a whole test and inspect step that, you know, when we go to our clean room, or when we go into like, you know, something is done in a quality inspection step, it's there. But what about like the 3-piece verification at the beginning of a work order that we'll do, like on our metal parts we make? The first 3 that come off have to be verified. So why not, when you task into that job and assembly, not shop data, so we're not, you know, registering a cycle off of a machine, but it'd be great the first time that process is tasked into, it would say, you need to do your 3-piece verification and record the lots.
Right, and input
Record
all
the
your
lots
specs
and
that you need
record,
that you're
yeah.
measuring for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that would be great. That would be helpful to us if the system could trigger that automatically.
Yeah, as far as I know, there was no way, and maybe it still is, to require an inspection to take place.
Okay,
Like with a hard stop, you know.
I'll put that in my notes. I'm gonna send my notes around to all of you, so please feel free to annotate them and edit them, make sure I've got everything down right. And then after we go through an edit cycle, I'll pass it on to Rob Wiersma and to my boss, Steve, and we'll walk through a lot of these different elements. And I'll also reflect, you know, the big requirements as well, like having a product
You can
manager.
add,
and a group.
you know, a quick
Yeah.
inspect to an assembly
Yep,
process route, but again, so it's there, but nothing
Yeah.
makes the user fill it in and actually execute.
okay, that's good feedback. Excellent feedback. You have
So
a,
what
yeah,
company are you from?
Biotechny, headquartered in Minneapolis, but our office is in Massachusetts, about a half hour west of Boston. we make medical devices which are control solutions primarily. Glucose controls, blood gas controls, and coagulation controls. So everything we formulate, big batches of liquid, and they get filled into either 3cc or 6cc plastic vials or glass ampules. The coagulation controls actually go out and get lyophilized into onion skin, powdered blood amps that then go inside of another squeezable vial. We put diluent around, so when it comes time to use, they actually can squeeze it, crush the amp, reconstitute the dried blood, and then put a drop onto whatever the instrument is that they're using to QC their instrumentation with. So those are our three prime. If you're a diabetic and you have a control solution, we make that control solution. We have about 90% of the market share
No kidding.
on glucose controls and blood gas controls. So yeah, we formulate, fill, label, and pack. We're a turnkey operation. So we do everything soup to nuts. And for the vast majority of our customers, we ship direct to their distributions. They don't see the product and approve it. They trust us that we're making it right. And so we produce and ship directly to their distribution centers.
Okay.
How many customers do you have?
Customers, I'll say 1,000
Yeah,
customers that make up 80% of our revenue.
yeah.
6.
Wow. Who are the 6 largest customers?
Roche, LifeScan, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott Point of Care, Abbott Diabetes Care, Siemens, and then Creva for the coagulation side of things.
Wow. Your business growing at a double-digit compound annual growth rate because of all the aging population and people.
Our business isn't growing because we have so much market share. When someone else gets it, we have to it's just bastardizing our own business. We have to make sure we get that new customer that had us. So we're actually having to reach out, and I was actually mentioning to Glenn last night that we've actually just started producing our first product for the veterinary market space because it's always been human, and so we're actually branching out, trying to branch out into vet. And if it goes well, then we hope that corporate in Minneapolis will actually see this as a potential revenue stream for all their divisions. And then actually make maybe even make a veterinary division. That's our hope down the road, that our site in Devon's, Mass can sort of be the primary HQ, if you will, for veterinary development. But we utilize all the synergies across all of our different companies. Like in Minneapolis, they specialize in making proteins and antibodies. I don't know how many different antibodies and proteins that they have, primarily used that get sent out for research and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
They don't work in what I guess I'll call the point of care type of world that we supply.
Sure.
Do you run IQMS in one plant or in several plants?
Just one.
One. So Danvers is kind of like an IP center as well. A lot of people getting patents there and doing a lot of R&D there as well as production.
There's a lot in Massachusetts. There really is. Tons of, and it's just learning how to form those alliances and those partnerships.
Yeah.
For sure. And yes, unfortunately, we are make to order for the most part. Most of our lead times for our glucose products is anywhere from 3 weeks to 5 weeks. Our blood gas products is 10 to 12 weeks. Because there's a large step in the middle of the process where after we formulate and fill the product, we actually have to send out samples back out to our customer so they can actually value assign. They actually literally run those controls in their machines. Each lot you produce, even though you try to make it exactly the same, of course they're never exactly the same. So they have to literally run them on their instruments, and then they provide back to us, okay, here's the values to put on product insert. One of those giant inserts that opens up like a big roadmap that nobody ever reads, but they do have to put the values on this so that when the tech is using it in the hospital, they actually know, oh, when I run this, I can expect values of between here and here for this lot of material. When I get that, that means my machine is working fine, right? So that whole loop of sending things out for value assignment and then get them back, then we have to work with our printing vendor to take our shell and lay those values into the insert. And that always happens at the 12th hour, 2 days before we have to ship, because the people that order the product and the people that do value assignment don't talk to each other. They don't know what's hot and what's not hot, right? So we always end up getting the values at the last minute. Then we're always asking our our print vendor, okay, here's the values, drop them in, we have to send out proofs, we have to get approval of proofs, we have to send them to our customer, they review and approve the insert proof, then finally they can go to press. So it's the last week or so of our process, for blood gas anyway, is always like a horrible hell crunch.
Yeah.
Because we have to loop back to our customer,
Yeah.
and there's such a part of that loop, it's so annoying. There are a few products, we have their instruments in-house, and we can value assign in-house.
Yeah.
A lot of these instruments cost, $25,000, and so they're not real anxious to give us one to use. Some of them do, but not a lot of them do.
You use Outsource Central then for the stuff you have to ship out?
We don't, they're not considered a vendor, we have a sample SKU that we'll put in. Every time they order this finished good, we know we have to put in a sample SKU also for whatever, I don't know, 3 pieces, and that gets shipped out like 2 weeks or a week after we actually do the fill. So that gets scheduled separately from the labeling and packaging of the finished bulk lot.
What role are you, are you in IT, are you in quality, are you in?
I have a really weird role in that my title is business analyst, but I don't come from an IT background. I'm actually more of a strategic business analyst. I was project manager for implementing IQ when we implemented in July of 15. Myself and our IT manager did the whole thing. So I'm as intimately familiar with the software as just about anybody in the building. But now my role has really shifted to this veterinary thing and helping find new connections, work with new collaborators, and learning the lay of the land, what it means to operate, who the distributors are. This is another big change for us too, again, because we're OEM, we just make the stuff and ship it out and they sell it. This vet product is our product, so this is really new for us to have to market it and sell it and make all these decisions and distribute it. And so it's been a massive learning curve for us learning that part of the business that we've never really had to do before. So I've kind of been focused on that kind of stuff. I just also happen to still be the IQMS guy, which is good. I wouldn't want to lose this piece of my knowledge that can help the company out. So it's kind of a weird, my role is always changing. Almost every 2 or 3 years, I get thrown in some other new thing I know nothing about, but I've learned a ton.
Yeah, you're kind of like a ER surgeon. You probably have the reputation of being an ER surgeon there, where if there's an emergency or is it?
Yeah, at
So
least,
you-
I can at least help with some ideas or
Yeah.
say, how can the system help us do this? And I'll go, I can sort of
Yeah.
try to think like I know the software thinks and go, okay, well, this would be a problem, but that looks like that would work. That kind of thing.
How many years you been there?
12.
Wow, that's great. Wow. So with regard to building out the roadmap and with regard to everything you've talked about, up to this point, I think definitely want to bounce some ideas off of you with regard to, the notes I'm taking. And again, I want it to be a really collaborative effort to capture all the knowledge needed. And even though that there's some painful areas with regard to EDHR and some of the things we've talked about, the good news is that that there's a real commitment. I mean, to be able to turn things around and be able to build a strong product.
Another area, and I'm thinking now that I know has gotten better, but I still don't know if it's as robust as it could be. For us personally, expiry is a huge issue.
Yeah.
A lot of our products, either input products or certainly products that we make, have shelf life. Some of them very short shelf life.
It doesn't work?
No, until very recently, like if something expired, it still wouldn't go as unallocatable or
You can still
NCMR.
ship it?
You could still ship it, you could still allocate it to a work
So
order.
you'd have to have an alert.
It turned
for
red,
weather
but that's all it did
reports.
was turn red.
And that there's no stop on that at all, huh? You could allocate it, you could do anything else with it.
Correct. I think they've changed it now so that once it does expire, it flips into non-allocatable and NCMR
You want me
tags.
to verify that for you right now?
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
screamed about that, like, well, and MRP needs to know that too, right, for purchasing. If we have a chemical that's gonna
Right.
expire in 2 weeks, but the lead time for that chemical to buy it again is 4 weeks, I
Right.
can't wait till 2 weeks to get the alert to,
Yeah,
hey,
you've
buy
gotta
this.
know.
It's gotta plan ahead.
Yeah.
I still don't think that functionality exists.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Good point.
It's-
There is no plan ahead functionality for end of life on when you're flipping
On
over
raw
a
materials.
raw material or a revision of an item or a subassembly. There's no,
And
the
it,
system
and
doesn't
it
handle that.
really
at
has
all.
to, if, when
We have to fix that.
when MRP runs and gives suggested buys
Yeah.
to, it's gotta factor in expiry and lead time
Yeah.
to alert the buyer to put more on the shelf, so that when it expires, we're not out, and we can't do that.
There's no easy way to get a raw material forecast out of the system at all either. If you, what raw
The
materials.
forecast
you-
module in general is a piece of crap.
Well, we don't use it, we do auto MRP, but we're trying to say, what's all of our raw material requirements like for a year? And the system just doesn't handle it at all.
So we're,
There's
we're
no.
pretty bad at raw material.
Raw material forecasting and MRP.
Well, yeah, so like those
Yeah.
knots, we buy 2 million of them a year,
Yeah,
but do we need, like, there's no way based on using auto MRP for you to say, this is your, I guess, based on previous 6 months, what should be your forecast for the next year of this material?
mhm.
The system doesn't handle that at all. I know our materials manager struggles with it all the time. What were we gonna try to do?
You were gonna see if it hits the expiry date, if it changes to non-allocated.
Changes to red, does nothing else, just kind of sits there.
That's what it used to do, and I believe that's been,
So that you'll get a work
Rectified.
order and purchasing.
Because the EOQ logic behind that, I mean, that's like fundamentals of like
I like your
operations.
purple.
no,
bag.
really, I couldn't believe it, I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
all it did
Yeah.
was give you a visual indication, I'm like, what good is that? That's,
And the logic exists. I mean, anybody's got like an operations research degree can do that algorithm.
yeah.
It's
We
pretty
have
great.
a really nice background that tells everybody whether they're in our training environment or our prod environment.
Oh, we do
Yeah.
the same
Yeah, we have
thing.
different
that's
colors.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
yeah, not only the color, but see the background, the like watermark
Oh,
in
we
there.
have, we,
Oh,
we
wow.
do,
Yeah.
we do client installs.
That's very
You-
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do too.
URDP.
But yeah, we,
especially since we're in the middle of implementation, so a lot of people are flipping back and forth between train and prod.
That's a
and-
good idea.
Yeah, when they added that, we're like, oh, thank God, that's
So-
gonna help.
We've been testing shelf life 2 for adhesive because we purchase adhesive. We keep it in a fridge, but once it's been open, you can only use it for like 2 weeks or something
Sure.
like that, and then we've got to throw it out. So what we've got, this is all showing. These are all red.
So they're expired.
They're expired, but
What's
they
the
are not checked as
status?
non-conforming. At all. I don't know if I have a work order that would consume this directly, but I'll put a bomb in that'll consume it. I'm easy like that.
We also have an issue with just the lot docs table in general and how the table structure is generated, like. For us, well, the way it creates new locations, the fact that it ties, I'm gonna get this wrong, cause I can't think of it precisely, but the fact that. I'm not gonna express this properly, but the fact that it creates new locations. Damn it, there's something to do with the lot docs table and the fact that it's not tied to the item, it's tied to a location. And when that location goes away, you sort of lose that traceability.
So it removes the FG multi-location when the location's gone and there's no more history of that anymore, right?
Right.
So every inventory location has an FG multi-record. So then
Which ties the location to the.
the lot,
the
to the lot number in the item, yes. So even if looking at this, why did I close it? So each item on here, even though, each separate line here is an entry on the FG multi-table, basically. So it's a combination of your lot, your location, and the inventory item. And yeah, the location. So location, lot number, and inventory item number. And then the item number based on, could be if the rev changes on the inventory item, you're gonna
That's
have
a
blah,
new
blah,
one.
blah. Yeah.
I think it was actually lot costing, now that I'm thinking of it, that was an issue. Like you could have, like us, we wanted to say this lot costs this, to make one of these, it costs this. But if you put that same lot in a different location, that second location can get a totally different cost assigned to it.
Really?
Yeah. And we're like, because the cost gets tied to the lot, to the location, not the lot. And we hate that.
So say that again, the cost gets tied to what?
To the location, not to the lot. I could have the same lot of material in 3 locations, and all 3 of those could have different costs.
Well, yeah,
Is this-
because
Is this actual versus standard?
we use actual.
Oh, okay, we use
Okay.
standard.
We use standard, but we keep playing with actual, but we can't figure out something like what you're saying. and
Yeah,
you
the
just
standard
scratch
cost
your
is
head.
captured in the FG multi-table. It lists
Standard
it when
cost
you
is
look
fine,
at,
we
Yeah.
don't use standard.
Yeah.
And I get why, you know, maybe you'd want, so how we controlled it in our previous ERP, which was, if we did have, say, one receipt of a material that had cost of A, and then a subsequent receipt 6 months later of the same lot, but maybe it had different cost or whatever, we'd sort of suffix the lot number with like a -1 at the end or something, and that would let us put that different cost on that lot. We actually would tweak the lot number a little bit. But that way, that's how we used to control it. Here, you can have different costs, and often it will assign different costs in a million locations, even though it's the same lot of material. And sometimes that, when you're on actual, that really screws us.
Yeah, it makes it difficult to trace too. Well, kind of impossible, unless you've got some delineation of location by lot. Yeah, yeah, that's good feedback.
We're so immature in our costing and finance, we won't get to that problem for a long time.
Mhm.
You'll have it solved by then.
Sometimes it's good to be slow.
Yeah, the bar is pretty low in some areas for us.
So
alright.
I think they prevented it from letting I assume that's what you're testing.
We're gonna
That-
find out, I'm
letting
gonna
you
put in a
hard
bomb,
alloc-
I'm
letting
gonna
you
put a
hard
bomb
allocate
in
an
for it.
expired
Yeah,
material.
see, yeah, see what happens.
I think they fixed it so you can't do that.
Well, we got some work to do.
So in-
Luckily, I've done this about 1,000 times in my life, so
In the meantime, can you give us an overview of your company and
Yeah.
products?
So company started about 13 years ago.
And which company is it?
It's called MedBio, contract manufacturer, basically injection molding and some assembly. So we went live with just the core program end of 2013. Used that, and just recently this year we started implementing everything else. So we're kind of in process on the quality module and in process. We just did project management.
How did that go?
The difficulty is getting people to use it consistently.
What are you
And we
using it
started
for?
real simple, launching new products.
Do you guys have a tool shop?
Yes,
Are
but
you
they're
using
not
it
on
for that?
IQMS,
Okay.
and they're about an hour south of us in Kalamazoo.
But you are using it for new product launches?
Yeah. And really the key was just looking at some simple measures, quality, cost, delivery of the new product. So we can track against our NRE costs and quoted costs. So that's working out fairly well. Let's see. It's, if you do injection molding, the software fits like a glove. It's, designed for that, so it works well most of the time.
Do you have multi-cavity?
Yeah.
Do you run into any issues with that? How to set up
No.
your bombs and?
No, the family tools are difficult, and it's probably in our report writing. We have somebody write crystal reports. Actually, our director of finance's husband comes in after hours, and we just kind of pay him to do that stuff. But always seem to have issues reporting family tools, even on the canned reports that we get.
it does throw an error now if you try to,
You can't hard allocate an expired
it says
material.
capability not supported.
Well, that's a different error message than I think what we get. That doesn't sound like a very much, capability not supported, sounds like a really generic error as opposed to,
But I think they use a lot of generic errors.
well, they do, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
That's what they
it should say something like you cannot
Yeah.
hard allocate an expired
Or
lot.
something like that.
Yeah, make it
Yeah.
descriptive, right?
It makes sense
That almost
to you,
that almost
but they
sounds like
just got a
like a
UI
rights type of
designer,
error,
so,
which I'm sure
know.
you don't have. That almost sounds like a rights type of error.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, right, you capability not supported. I mean, if you were looking at that, it's very hard to read. They need much bigger TVs in here. We have 80s in our conference room. You guys are way behind the times here.
Yeah, for a big room like this.
Like that's, yeah. What does that really mean?
That's really archaic. We all know about archaic error messages, but that's
Yeah.
really archaic,
But it doesn't look like you could do it.
which is good.
It would be interesting if hold on, let me delete all my other locations and then just try to consume it on the work order and see if it'll go in. I'll do that. I won't hard allocate it, but I'll go in. I'll work on this. I'll delete all the other locations and leave only an expired and see what happens. Cause it should just consume from that, whatever's in inventory, right?
Yeah,
So are you a medical device or are you a supplier to medical device manufacturer?
We do anything from making an injection molding component and selling it to a customer. Mostly, we've got 2 automotive lens jobs, but we're 99% medical or
Okay.
biotech and the microfluidics side,
Okay.
DNA testing, things like that. That's the fastest growing part of our business right now. And that's a lot higher volume. We're typically hard to do, lower volume kind of stuff. Cardiac surgery is the biggest medical market that we're in. It's all disposable. We call it plumbing supplies. The cannulas will go in, take the blood out of your heart to the heart lung machine and bring it back. Needles, all kinds of support type stuff for open heart surgery. Probably about 1,200 finished goods. Some of it we assemble, package, and sterilize and bring back and distribute for our customers. So we'll go that far with it.
How many customers do you have?
Probably about 40.
40? They globally based or predominantly?
Predominantly in North America.
Predominantly North America. We ship to Costa Rica and Ireland.
Do you have
Any compliance issues with them that you have to abide by to be able to ship into Ireland or
No, nothing
No.
different than.
nothing in
Yeah.
here? Yeah. You ever been audited by the FDA? Is
Oh,
it?
yeah.
What was that? How'd that go?
Actually went fairly well, but most of the audits that we've had, they've probably been in 4 or 5 times in the last 6 years, but are on behalf of a customer getting audited, so then they'll show up and wanna see the records and
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And then when they come in for that, it's a narrow scope. It's only about this product line or something, and they don't even,
Sure.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
pretty easy.
obviously they trip over something they might ask, but
Sure.
keep
Kinda like a
locked in
building
the
inspector.
conference room as best you can.
Yeah.
Do your customers require that you have a validation strategy and plan?
Yeah.
Show execution to
Yep.
it? How did you do that with EIQ?
It's mostly all paper and manual, and we're just starting kind of a massive software validation program right now that we're going through every module. And it's time consuming. That's probably the biggest issue, I think, going forward for IQ in the
Right.
medical industry is this whole validation thing.
And how have you survived since 2003 without being validated?
Paper-based system. So as long as we can produce the records and physically show them,
I think
good,
what we
but-
did is we purchased validation scripts from this guy who actually used to.
Greg.
Yeah, but when we reached out
Greg.
to him, his stuff was like 5 versions back,
Old, yeah.
and
oh, really?
yeah, we reached out. Well, we were working with Lisa Palasek. She did some training for us. She just left EIQ, but
Yeah, I know. I
yeah,
know Lisa. She's been out to our site.
yeah, I'm bummed. She's but she, she had come from Phillips,
Mhm.
but yeah, so she referred us over to him, but his stuff was really
Greg
old.
Bell.
Yeah,
I don't remember
and-
the dude's name, maybe there's more than one
Greg
person
Bell.
doing it, I don't.
Yeah,
No.
he
was
the
it
only-
recommended from
He was
IQMS?
the only one that EIQ could recommend.
I don't know.
Did you use him?
We did
'Cause
years
we
ago.
talked to him, but
And what he did was fine. I would say generally going forward, our validation strategy is I have a project I'd love to do for the last 3 years. I've said we need to totally rewrite our validation scripts because they are just the only thing that we should be validating is anything that has to do with the quality or lot traceability of the product. None of the other stuff. Like we have stuff about putting in new customer orders and all that needs to get out of the validation, and that's stuff that we should just do as a
Well, you say
verification
that,
of software
but if revision is a
functionality.
big part of that, if you need to make sure that your customer's order is booked at their revision of the product and that carries through, I don't know if that
Not
matters
for
to you,
us,
right,
yeah,
sure.
because our you know the people making demands on the product changes are internal, not our customers.
Sure, well, that's
So,
true, right.
So yeah, I mean, if it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the product or the manufacturing of the product, I would say don't put it in your validation script because it's just more stuff that can be scrutinized by an outside agency looking to look into your records. So we need to go through module by module and redo that. And this was kind of brought up yesterday too, was that it would be really great if we didn't have to test every single little stupid transaction in Enterprise IQ in every single version.
Mhm.
Like if they could provide some sort of a standard group of tests and provide documentation that it works or something or other that's, we put this in and we consumed it and we can see that it happened. Anything like related to lot tracing, trackability, work order systems, workflow, documentation being attached. I mean, anything that has to do with the manufacturing of a product that's basic functionality. It would be great if on a new version, IQMS could give us a 75-page report of, hey, we tested this. This was our expected outcome. This was the outcome that we got, which is basically what we do. Here's our test.
Yeah.
Here's our expected outcome, and here's what we actually got.
Even if they could supply the scripts and we had to execute them, that would even be a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So since validation is all about intended use
Mm-hmm.
and all the different configurations in your system versus what could be done, how would IQMS be able to do that on behalf of all of us?
So, like I said, basic functionality.
Okay.
Like we mark something as non-conforming, we shouldn't be able to consume it.
Oh, okay.
Like checking things like that in the system that we have to go
Okay.
through and physically check, or things like, hey, we put this material on this bomb at a consumption of 2. When we put in a work order for 100 of it, how many is it consuming? It should be consuming 200. Like things like that we have to go through and test and validate. Just basic stuff like function. Is it working as intended?
So the basic stuff that doesn't matter how your system's
Yes, that would
configured.
be
Right.
for anybody.
So they can essentially do 2/3 of your validation for you, and then you've gotta do all the.
Right, so mark
Yeah,
that down.
I got that.
Yeah, thanks. So a baseline validation script that
Because
covers the
all of
core
us are
functionality.
recreating the wheel,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
even know if we're doing it
Sure.
Right.
to the
No.
right level
Right.
or.
We
No.
could save a tremendous amount of time by providing
Yeah,
it.
baseline.
And we've asked for that for as long as we've been a customer, and even before we were a customer, and we're always told no.
They probably still feel like with all of the toggles that are available, even coming up with a baseline one is next to impossible. That's probably what their stance is.
Yeah, but there's gotta be. I mean, come on.
I hear you, but I'm just thinking that's
If you
probably
put if
their
you put
stance.
inventory into a location, it should show in that location,
Yeah.
right? I mean, basic transactional crap. I mean, if you were to read our 200-page validation script, 90% of it is just verifying transactions, making a transaction, then going in and making sure it's stuck.
I'll talk to Dan about
About it today. And let me go right to the CTO and just ask him about that, because if we could do that, we could save you a tremendous amount of time.
So we've also asked in the past, how you say your system is Part 11 compliant with the FDA, why and how? And we validated it. Well, never been provided any proof of this happening. They always say, well, we had an FDA auditor come out and consult with us on this. Okay, that's great. I can say I met with the president yesterday, and I'm just saying I met with the president yesterday. Is there any proof, documentation, or anything like that that this is really the case?
Mhm.
If not, they're just blowing smoke up all of our asses.
Yeah, let me get some certification on that. Yeah, I'll see what we have in terms of Part 11 validation. We should just be open and share exactly, the script or the actual certificate, because.
Well, there's no certificate that they grant. It's
they'll write a
an
test.
interpretive thing, right?
Yeah.
You read it and say, okay, these are the controls that you need to put in place, but
Yeah.
there's no secondary sign off when you're putting inventory into when you're actualizing inventory at the end of a work order.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of a document that will unequivocally say yes or no. Because I think if it was just verbal, then it's just anecdotal data where I hope that we have a report that has, empirical data in it
Mm-hmm.
that says we are Part 11 compliant.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'm about ready to try to task this work order.
yeah, let me see if we can.
Going through your validation, did you hire somebody from the outside?
No,
You're doing it?
yep, doing it all internal. In fact, I assume you guys are all ISO, has anybody
Mhm.
moved up to the version 16, 2016?
I know somebody went to training for it and Helpman was there.
I think our next audit will be on the
We've got
2016
ours
version of
next
it.
week for the new version, and big change in the risk assessment area. That's a big little section they've added from the old one. And that's
Yeah,
where we
your
got going
FMIAs
all.
now have to be in a specific format, it's like,
Yeah.
a
And-
detectability, occurrence and severity, and then you put it in a matrix, and then you get a metric out the other end, and then that number, whatever that relates to, it's like if it's low, you don't have to have any active countermeasures, but if it's high or medium, you have to spell
Well, the
them
other thing
out.
that we had to go through all of our procedures and SOPs and put a clause in there about how we're going to assess the risk of every procedure.
Are you
Yeah.
serious?
And that's where our whole software validation thing comes in as well, that, you know, we're starting to do that.
Yeah, any of our documentation now that we submit for procedures or experiments, experiment designs, any of that now has a whole risk section in it. And we're doing a FMIA for any little thing. I mean, even if it's just like bringing a new module online with Enterprise IQ, or even using a new functionality in our outside document control system, they're doing the whole thing, the whole documentation package, and it's including a FMIA, a user specs, a functional spec, project charter, the whole ball of wax, and putting it in there. But yeah, the FMIAs now are something that we've started doing in the last couple of years now, which is probably for compliance with that. So I know they're heavy on trying to mitigate risk going in the future. All right, so who wants to put bets on whether we can task this and consume it or not?
And you're on what version?
15.3.
I think it'll stop you.
I think it'll create a temp location and drive it negative. That's what I think it'll do.
Yeah.
It's gonna backflush something, right? So it's gonna go, damn it, okay, I'm gonna make a new location.
I don't
and I'm gonna
disagree
drive
with
it
you.
negative.
I don't disagree with you. I forgot my work order number. 669-848.
Or you might just get a hard stop.
So there's only one inventory location for this product, right? This is gonna consume this 000140. And all we have is one quantity of one in a non-conforming, in an expired location, not marked non-conforming. Hold on, let me,
Yeah, cause you know why it's doing that? Cause it tried to create a temp location without a lot number and it's not satisfying the lot number required.
yes,
So it's
hold
going,
on.
screw you.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let's turn off lot tracing on the item.
Coffee.
Not wrong tab. Alright, let's try it again. Report production.
Based on that error message, it's definitely just gonna create a location and drive it negative, cause that's what it was trying to do.
Survey says this is now -4.
So it,
No, it
There you
did create
go.
a new location.
see,
So it would not take it from the expired location. So that's good.
Yeah.
And the only reason why, and it wouldn't allow us if it was lot, and all of our items are lot numbers mandatory, so.
well, most of our, we have a few items that aren't, you know,
Yeah.
corrugated and bullshit. But yeah, all of our primary components, yeah, are all lot numbers required. So yeah, it will stop you, which is good.
So that's an improvement.
A little better description there would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the end user, the people on the floor that get that message are like, I have no idea what that means. Now, you know, again, I saw it and went, I know
Yeah.
what that is.
Yeah.
But
Here's a general suggestion is that, users don't read the error messages because they're not descriptive enough. They just bypass it every single time. If there was more descriptive error, and I think this has been talked about at cab, user group, pretty much every time that the error messages need to be more descriptive.
now that was rather lengthy, that error message.
Yeah, but
But
that's just
it was still, again, sort of
insufficient
in,
lot number. I mean, okay,
Do you guys
Why?
have cards?
I do.
I'm
yes.
gonna jump over into the MES session.
Can you all write down your email addresses as well? Oh,
Yeah.
got that, yeah. Yeah, give me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Here are, thank you for that.
Having some fruit.
Thanks.
Anybody wants any?
Do you
I
have,
will.
do you have cards with you?
I do. Set this down a minute.
Okay.
So my thought is, and I don't know the
Yeah, pass them
answer,
out.
I don't know the answer to this,
Cause I don't know if I have
is,
Sean somewhere. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hey.
You guys get a bit of a break?
Yeah, I think we're kinda doing that now.
I'll leave it up
Yeah.
to you to call on. I figured everybody has things to do and emails and things back home. to catch
Nice
up.
meeting you. I am so new, I don't have a card yet, but I'll respond back to
Okay.
with my notes and
Super.
notes. Thanks for all your
Okay,
contributions.
thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah,
So where we left it, I've got about 15 pages of notes.
Okay,
So I'm gonna write them all together and I wanna pass them around,
Sure,
make sure
yeah.
that we're all on
awesome.
the same page, and I'll send them on to you once we get them all cleaned up. Real good
So this has
session,
been a
lots of,
good discussion this morning?
Yeah.
So what I'm curious about, and I don't know the answer to this, is in terms of compliance and compliance functionality, how much will require, if you will, use of the quality modules in order to get the compliance versus not having the quality modules and still satisfying compliance requirements? You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Like what is base versus what is quality module,
Good question, yeah.
Yeah,
you know?
Very good question.
You know, I can sit here and say, of course, it's a great sales tactic for you guys. Well, if you want full compliance, you just get our quality modules, you'll be happy. Of course, my flip side is, but we don't wanna do that, why
it's-
should we suffer?
it's a
Yeah.
$10,000 one-time sale.
You know,
It's
Yeah.
not like it's a revenue stream for them, right?
Right,
It's,
but granted, but it's a major
and then
overhaul.
$1,600 a year.
It's a major
It's-
overhaul from, our standpoint to have to switch over all of our.
I think it's worthy of a separate conference call, to drill into exactly how you're defining compliance and see if we can solve that with our foundation or our base.
Sure,
To save you that money, and also to extend out your investment. So let's tackle that in a specific call where we really drill into what you're looking at from a compliance standpoint, and see what we could do to make the existing software stretch to be able to do that.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it for us would be to try to go more paperless, I think, in general.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
cause you can often be compliant with paper, right?
oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we found, and maybe this isn't true, but one of our vice presidents, who's now no longer with the company, stated that, and this could be correct, that in the FDA's eyes, if you had a piece of paper
Yeah.
that you then scanned, you still have to retain that piece of paper.
Yes.
Because the record didn't exist
right.
electronically from the word go.
Exactly.
So even though you scanned it and an image of that now exists, you still have to retain this for X number of years.
that makes sense according to EDHR requirements. That does
Um,
make sense. That sounds like it makes some sense, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But it doesn't, it's not the same requirement in financial recording at all.
no.
You can,
That's right, totally different.
yep,
yeah, because the data is the asset there, so. I think the issues they're looking at is the compliance of the process and the underlying process, and as long as you make that efficient, you've got that audit trail of that data for EDHR data, then overlaying EDHR on top of that and making it more efficient, then there's that cutover point where you go completely paperless.
Sure.
And then you have, of course, data redundancy issues and
Yeah,
everything.
I think
Yeah.
another, and by the sounds of some of what you were talking about, and I can't necessarily be specific, although maybe I could, if we could save time and labor by not having to do a manual human second verification of stuff, and just know that because the system's validated, and because the system took the right, whether it's through WMS and because you scanned it, or whatever, that we don't need that second verification, the system is validated, it complies, once you've said my software is validated, I don't need to do a second verification because the software does it and it does it right, I don't need to verify it. That would be a big thing in terms of human,
Yeah.
time savings.
and I think right now there's not a good enough trust level to think that that's even possible. Right?
Yeah, I mean, with something like reconciliation, for example.
Yeah.
Or, someone has to verify, that, you actually consumed what
Yeah.
it said it consumed.
Yeah, you said you just did this many parts and it should have taken all of this out of the system, like, this is what you consumed, is this correct? Are you putting these back? Where did you get the extra inventory from? Things like that, like.
And some of that's just human, whatever, you didn't.
But the fact that we have to,
You
the
haven't
fact that we had to
the item in
create,
3 months and oops, it's off by 4 pieces and now your reconciliation sucks, I mean, that shit
Yeah.
happens, but.
But the fact that we had to spend 3 months working on our customer report to do reconciliation,
No, agreed,
Why-
we did, us too, yeah.
I mean,
we
why
did.
can't that just, I mean, our manufacturing system should be able to do that. And it doesn't.
Sure, you input what was kitted, you input what you produced, you input what you had left, and it goes, love it, here's your report, you reconciled.
Yeah.
Congratulations, go get drunk.
There you go.
Do you have any plans to hire a product manager with extensive experience in the medical industry?
I don't have an open headcount for that just at this point in time, but generally speaking, you know, if I look at our kind of, so what, if you have MES or manufacturing as the center of the bubble, the
Sure.
further you get away from the bubble,
Mhm.
the more specific the product is, right? So
Yeah.
AWMS. But I think the problem is that traditionally in the past, what I've seen is we built it out using our customer or customers to drive those requirements, right? But when you get into these specialty products, you wind up with a limited view of what that is, so we wind up with gaps all over the place. So if we wanted to, so my view was, if we were gonna build that product out today, I would go get a subject matter expert on the product to drive those requirements and validate it back to the customers, as opposed to having the customers tell us exactly what you want. Because we often don't get the big picture, we get your picture, or we get your picture. And if we have enough of you, then we have maybe a good consensus, but often it's driven by one customer, right? And I got a dozen examples here where that's happened.
Sure.
Where we have gaps all over the place. So the answer is, if we were gonna go really deep into this product, I would get I would want us to get a subject matter expert on that.
So why are we, I mean, if we're gonna sit here and talk about all these things and put them on a timeline, but you're not gonna hire the product manager to support that.
I'm not saying it's is or isn't a product manager, it's a person, I don't know where.
Well,
that
whatever
person
it is, the
sits.
person that's gonna support that,
Yeah,
but
so your question was about product management, I don't have an open record product management, that's not to say I wouldn't hire someone to be a SME and.
yeah,
that
I mean,
topic.
I don't know if there's anybody in the company that really has
Exactly.
that sort of experience that can interface with the customers and,
Exactly,
you know, take our requirements
exactly.
and go back and
Because
forth
we
and,
experienced it over here and in several other products, same thing.
Yeah.
It's just how we got here,
yeah,
right? So yeah, Mr. Customer, we'll do exactly what you asked for, but at the end of the day, it's not a good long-term solution.
no, it's not. And
Right.
you need to have, you know,
Right.
a development plan of where you're going to grow your
So this-
product and,
yeah, exactly. So that's what I would like to get out of this, is what is, what's important and on a priority basis, and that goes into our overall planning process and it gets prioritized. And if this comes up near the top, then I wouldn't do it the same way we've been doing in the past. I would go get someone that's subject matter expert on those topics, right?
okay.
Whether that's contractual or full-time, I don't know. Maybe we only have a theme of 2 releases, maybe we just hire someone for a year, I don't know. There's all sorts of different ways we do it.
Put somebody on retainer and
Yeah.
be able to make.
Yeah,
it
really,
fun.
someone from the FDA or who was at the
Yeah.
FDA,
Yeah.
who would just know at the very least, here's your baseline, this system has to
I
be
know a
looked
guy
at,
that's.
A, B, C, and D.
I know a guy that knows in pharmaceuticals, knows all the compliance stuff, left, right, and center,
Yeah.
right? That I could tap into, like,
There you go.
So that's how I would approach it, that's generically how I approach it, that's how I would wanna approach the AWMS stuff over there, because it's not complete. And the customers that we help build it out for are saying, look, we don't wanna be your, requirements experts anymore, we wanna run our
Well,
business."
agreed, and
Absolutely right.
which is the point, right? This pharmacy guy could set this awesome baseline of,
Absolutely.
look at the minimum, it's gotta be able to do these 6 things.
Absolutely,
And now some of the other things that are specific to the verticals or whatever, or what type of device it is and all that, fine. But yeah, just having that solid,
Yeah.
baseline that it's gonna meet
Exactly.
would be huge.
yeah, exactly. Right, so that's why I picked this topic as one of our verticals, cause I do think it's super important to our base, and it's super important to our go-forward company strategy and where we wanna grow, right?
Yeah.
Right, so this is good.
What time's the next session start?
1.
One? Okay.
Well, this one goes, this time slot runs till 12, it's up to you guys how much time you wanna spend. But lunch is from 12 to 1, then we'll kinda repeat in the afternoon and wrap up at 4, so.
Okay.
Alright. Well, thank you. I'm gonna go type up my notes and
So you guys wrapped up here, you finished, or are you coming back for more?
I don't know, what do you guys think?
Keep chatting if you want, doesn't matter.
Yeah, we could talk about, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think,
I mean, while you're here,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's other topics, you know, like, it's for you, so.
sure. You guys scan all your materials through the whole process? With, from receipt of materials and.
Yeah, everything's done with a handheld PC, labeled, print labels out, move it all through. We use IQRF, not WMS.
Okay.
And we hard allocate with it, labels that way and everything too. We hard allocate through the handhelds. We pick lists and ship with handhelds and
Mhm.
yeah, everything's got a label in it in the building at this point now. Yeah,
We wanted to go there, but some people couldn't get their heads around the WMS and how, like, we tried desperately, like, if we have a pallet of something that has like 800 on it, we wanna just traditionally, like, just label that pallet as one. But some people couldn't get their head around that, cause they're used to everything having
yeah,
a
you
label.
make it a pallet in IQMS,
And-
basically.
and
The pallet that
But
contains
just-
800 of these, yeah.
People are gonna be like, what if I pull a box out? This doesn't have a label on it. How do I know what it is?
Well, then when you pull the box out, you edit your pallet and it's
Agreed.
gonna print a label to stick on your
But
box.
people are like, oh, but our people on second shift, they're not that intelligent. They're not gonna know how to
The
do that.
fear of
They're gonna pull a
No,
box.
getting
they're-
scattered around.
You know,
It's gonna be 1,000 times easier
And,
when it's when it's on WMS.
uh,
Our
It's a
inventory
li- it's a stamp,
accuracy-
It's a license plate, they call it. right?
Yeah.
License
Yeah.
plate for the
we,
pallet.
we just, enough of our users just couldn't get their head around it. They came up with so many bullshit roadblocks as to why conceptually it's gonna be challenging to a lot of our workforce, that it was like,
Yeah.
shoot me.
We carry so much inventory in our building. I mean, way too much in terms of sub-assemblies and finished goods. But our inventory accuracy is remarkably high, like 98 to 99%.
Okay, ours is as well.
And all of that is due to labeling everything, using WMS to move stuff around the building. We haven't done a full physical inventory in 4 years.
Yeah, we
Cycle
need it.
count.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no need.
Yeah, no, that's right. But
So you need to-
But those are processes, that's not software, that's processes.
Well, it's a process. You're right, but we're getting benefits because of the fact that
Right,
the software and using WMS and labeling everything and knowing where it is at all times.
right.
And when you're moving it to a location, they're not typing in a location, they're
That's right.
scanning a label
Exactly.
with that location. So the accuracy is,
Spot
and the
on.
people at first were like, but a week later, every single person that touches a material in our building was like, this is 1,000 times better.
Mhm.
Like the productivity went up, the amount of time it takes us to get work orders went down, because now they've just got to go in and scan a label. They don't have to go over to their system and drag a lot number over to hard allocate. They just hard allocate the label. And hey, we had 1,000 in this bag and we took 640 out. The system's going to print a label for the new one that says
Sure.
640 that's hard allocated, and they can either reprint the label on the original bag or they can just handwrite the quantity on there. But if they want to know what's in the bag, all they've got to do is query the label on the handheld and they go, oh, there it is. We know we've got this in there.
Mhm.
They don't have to go back to a terminal to find any of that information.
One big issue we had with RF is that we use consume all a lot. And you
Okay,
can't-
yeah, we don't
There is
do that
no
at all.
selecting consume all in RF, functionality doesn't exist. So, sure, I can do all my allocations using the gun, then I still gotta go back to the terminal and select consume all for the items I wanna consume all.
So you'll just take
pain
a
in the
whole lot
ass.
of something and say, we're making this whole lot's going to a customer, right?
Correct. Right, whatever, if it's our formulation, it's our big vat of juice that we're gonna put in bottles.
Yeah.
Right? We always make 6 or 10 liters more than we need because whatever, there's process loss or whatever.
Yeah.
We haven't tried that full amount. The work order, when we produce it, it's gonna leave a few liters
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah.
So we wanna check consume also, it just sucks it all up.
Right.
We can't do that in RF, cause that toggle doesn't exist. I put in a
Is there an idea in the
an
system?
SCR, well, back when there were SCRs, and it
Well, it
got,
should still be in the idea world today.
it got rejected, cause it wasn't important enough to enough people.
Can
But
you
I'm
put it in
like-
again?
Yeah, but
No.
that sounds like the
Yeah.
type of thing that should be easy to
Yeah.
implement,
I'm like,
right?
all I wanna do is
Yeah.
make the RF functionality
Yeah.
equal what already exists.
Can you put that
I'm
in
not
again?
asking for a new bell and whistle here.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
can you just put that in again?
I mean, we're not implemented, so I
Yeah.
don't have a vested interest in improving it right now. But I thought it was a relatively benign request and it was like,
Yeah.
Could you, well, different product management team then
Yeah,
too.
we
Not-
have a process now that we didn't have before, we have a total different process, we review those, my team reviews those idea portals, I'll show it to you guys, you wanna see it. We review them every Tuesday, right? So we're now at a point we've caught up with all the old ones and we give an answer right off the bat when we review it. We say, likely to implement means we like this one and we're gonna leave it out for vote to see if other people like it. I like this one, but not so much, right? We don't think this one's gonna get a lot of votes, but we'll leave it out for vote. It could already exist, right? You might not be aware that that function might already exist. We get a lot of those, believe it or not. It could be we're just building this out. You're not aware that we're building it out, or we,
Yeah.
you know. So you'll get a resolution on it within a week, right? And then we rank them. You know, we have an objective ranking. We have five buckets that we use to rank. Because what happened here is in this room, they sat here, a whole bunch of people, and they reject and approve these things willy-nilly, and it's all subjective, right?
I remember we'd see the emails, like
Yeah.
sometimes they'd come in bunches. You had like
Right.
12 a day, rejected,
Yeah,
declined, declined,
every
declined.
Tuesday at 9 a.m.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was horrified with this process, cause it's so subjective. And it doesn't need to be, it needs to be objective, right? So if you put an idea and you think it's the world's greatest thing since sliced bread, and it doesn't garner any votes, that's not to say that we will never do it, it's just to say that it's not a priority, but so in that example, maybe we've got IQRF open for other things. What we do is we look through these ideas and we say, hey, look, there's one here that wants to consume all button. But it got 2 votes, we just pull it in and do it, right? So it's not to say that just because it didn't attract votes doesn't mean it'll never get done, right? We evaluate those when we're doing the work in that area and say, hey, what other ones can we pull in here?
Sure.
So please put it in again, and I'm not gonna reject it this time, and let's see where, you know, it falls in the priority. Because the releases that we do are gonna be more themed based. You know, the problem with some of the releases I've seen is just because of this process here and having Randy just kind of say yes and no to things just without a rhyme or a reason. You know, we need to really get into more of a theme base, so the releases are more complete, right? So if we wanna have a quality themed based release, we're gonna gather up all those quality ones and look at the top 20, and that's the ones that we're gonna roll. Right, and then we're gonna look at the other quality ones, say, well, I've got that process open, because the test plan's the same, the test cycle's the same, it's, you know, if you do 2 at the same time, it doesn't really double the entire cycle, it's just the dev time you have to take, so, you know, if I'm gonna test that entire process, let's pull in a bunch of other smaller things, right? Because the overall time is not gonna take that much longer.
And that makes sense too, right? Because the modules are, that you're getting the most ideas on, that should tell you something.
It's evidence of what's important, right?
Right.
Right, so that we can't have that be the entire thing to drive our product plan forward, but it's a really good evidence of what's important, right? Because what we're not hearing, or traditionally the way we've been doing things, it's what we're not hearing is what kind of certification changes in government legislation that's coming next year. In the SER process, you never hear that. You hear, okay, it could be a payroll thing, it could be anything. You hear, I need this today, right? That's the kind of request you're getting. So we gotta change that mindset and say, you know, this is, you know, the CAD and other things that we do are all about the future looking, you know, we have to be able to lead down this, you know, the roadmap needs to be somewhat predictable, right? We wanna do 2 releases a year, very predictable. You'll know probably when your idea goes in and it gets the status from likely to implement will go to planned. That means we've pulled it from an idea to a feature, and it's either gonna be on this release or the next release, that's what planned means.
So
You'll
within
know that
within
it's
a
done.
year at that point when it flips, right?
Within this release, like the current release or the next release, right? And that changes all the time, right? That could change. So that's why I don't wanna put too many on that plan yet until we get close. Like right now, we're doing our planning right now from a company strategy. We had the meeting this morning. So what's the direction the company wants to go in, you know, over the next 3 years? And this is all the time now we're putting a roadmap together. You know, we'll revise. We have actually several roadmaps, but one of them is the one that is our public roadmap for customers. So this is what we're doing that's a benefit to you. We have an internal looking one where it could be all this crap that's not important to you, like we're changing some plumbing down here, we're making, you know, the language translations, so you don't have to have separate executables, it's gonna be in one, you know, those are things that are internal roadmap. So we're putting those 2 together right now, and this is the major driver of the input is this. And then based on that, those priorities, we'll come up with some themes and we'll roll these together, right?
You brought up an interesting topic, just had me thinking, again, thinking in terms of, I don't know about other industries, but I suppose it would certainly would be true, maybe automotive, but for medical device, again, if you guys could have an ear to the ground about regulations that are changing and get out ahead of it,
Well, that's right, so.
you know, like GS1 labeling, for
Yeah,
example,
I know.
everybody's
yeah.
having to, you know,
There's no
implement.
way to do it out of enterprise IQ at all.
But if you guys could have your ear to the ground, know this is coming, now you can get out ahead of it a little bit and almost start to have solutions before
That's
people
it.
start calling in saying, I need
That's what I
this.
wanna get to. This is a, you know, walk, do a
Sure.
couple steps before we run. And that's why we, you know, you've heard about all the reorganizers and changes that we've been doing. So product management is really that outward facing part of this. So I get this, people, you know, kind of laugh and say, but I'm not a product expert, but that's not my job, is to be a product expert here. We need to be understanding the industry and the industry drivers and what the market changes are in the industry. That's what product management's about. The product owners, like Naomi there and people that are in the back room yesterday, they're the ones that are taking these market requirements that we're talking about and translating them into, they're the real knowledge experts of the product, and translating them into requirements for the Scrum teams. So it's a, you know, kind of a downward flow. But product managers in this definition don't need to be product experts, right? We need to be market experts.
And regulatory, and when
All
it's
those things,
applicable,
all
sure,
those things,
yeah.
all those things. So that's why I've kind of got, so, but we need, in that transition, we need lots of product experience here, but I don't need to be the product expert.
Well,
right?
sure.
I have we have 100 people here that are product experts. I understand ERP, I've been working with ERP for 30 years almost, so. In pharmaceutical and F&B, medical devices, you know, all sorts of stuff. So from an industry perspective or customers or how you guys make money, I'm good, right? And so I'm changing my team to be more like that and thinking more that way, but that's a transition that we'll go through. But, you know, I chose Stephen to put on the team because he's got all that experience with all the customers from 10, 15 years, right, from a professional services. So he's got that expertise that we need because, you know, why did we do this? Why did we do that? Why does this, you know, sort of wacky? And he's got all that. You know, Olivia's got all the expertise from a QA and support experience really on the MES products, right? So again, we're really working with those two. And Shelley is different. He's more like me. So he's not a product expert, although we get complaints in terms of say, hey, he's not a product expert. And I keep saying he doesn't need to be. He knows the financial regulatory landscape really well.
Yeah.
Multi-currency, other countries, consolidations. He's an absolute expert at that. That's why we brought him in, because we had zero expertise in-house for that. So that model is what I want everybody else to be, and so we're a mix in between of where we were and where we're going. But this process here should be very far-looking. And I realize it's gonna take a bit to get there. Because I just said in the MES one, they're all talking about, I need this change today kind of thing, which is okay, it's good feedback. But I'd really like to be talking about, you know, in that industry, what's, you know, not part of the business, what's the industry drivers going on, it's Internet of Things, right? That's the disruptive force, that's the Uber that's coming down the pipeline. That's the level of conversation I would like us to be having. But I'm not hearing that there, so it's gonna take a little.
Yeah, it's hard for people to distance themselves from the
I
day-to-day, this
get
is how we
that.
function today.
I get it.
Sure, I'd love to be able to
I get it.
imagine how, you know, boy, if I could just input data from this, that'd be
Yeah,
awesome,
I get it.
you know.
I get it. So we have to, that's where I wanna get to, but I know we're not gonna start there, right? Cause we were really far over on the other side of the scale, we were, you know, building, you know, we were taking SERs, you know, right up to a week before they were release a product. And they were putting it in, they were just jamming it in the last minute. So you wanna talk about product quality, there's 100 reasons like you could point to, like, don't do that. So those changes are all being made, and you know, the 15.3, the comments around calling on 15.3 were a little bit unfair, so I'm just gonna defend Dan a little bit because I feel like he needs to be defended a bit. We track now, so we always track bugs in aggregate, right? We never said that release produced X amount of bugs. We made some changes, this release produced X minus number of bugs. We never really looked at it that way, but we are now. 15.3 has a lot of evidence that shows way less bugs produced in 15.3 than before. So I think we need more track time and evidence before we can stand up quite firmly and say, no, it is a lot better.
Mhm.
Because if you have a really, like the example that was given yesterday, yeah, it's just as bad, you know, that shouldn't happen. So there's more work to do, but all of this, you know, planning a release out in advance with all the documentation done up front. It goes to the scrum teams, they do the grooming, they know. We do it at our level, we just say it's a t-shirt size. We know it's a small, medium, large, extra large, so that's one of the qualifiers. If it's a circus tent, or as they call Rob size, they call it circus tent. You know, it has a lower priority than 30 things that are small, as an example, right?
Yeah.
In the priority wise, you scale it like that. So there's 5 other things there's 5 things in total like that. And then what we do is we move those all to plan. So these are all the ones we're planning about, and then we send them all to the scrum teams. We have 8 now. Now that they're all consolidated under one umbrella. And they'll spend the more detailed time and look at them and say, yeah, so they use story points, you know, that's a early scrum thing. It's a way to estimate how long it takes. And it's basically, the concept is, well, we did something like that last year and it took 3 weeks, right? So this one's really much like that one, so we'll get that one 3 weeks, you know, but we're using points to do that, so they assign points to weight things, so 10 story points is smaller than 20 story points, right? Without putting hours or days on it, but that's how they would do it. And then over time, now that the scrum teams have been executing for a couple of months, we know that this scrum team can execute 35 story points in a sprint, which for us is pretty much 2 weeks. So we can easily look down and say, okay, I've got 100 story points in total in aggregate. You know, that's going to take, you know, 5 scrum sprints across 3 teams, right? And now I've got a pretty good understanding of what I can deliver and when. Because putting the data out into the future and then trying to cram everything like what we're doing with WebIQ is really hard, right? To manage to a date for software because it's so unpredictable sometimes, and we're trying to line up the financials of WebIQ are 2 projects that started off unrelated and now they're converging and they have to be together at that day. So it's a constraint that's making things complicated. You know, it's just how it happened. But going forward, and then we're also looking at like now that the schema, you know, if the schema is locked, we can start to release things without waiting for a release, right? Because there's no impact to other things, right? So this, you know, Trevor's gonna come in here and show the track and trace. I think he said he was gonna come here. You guys should have a look at
That
that.
would
Yeah, I
be-
wanna see it.
Yeah,
He's
that'd be,
busy showing it over there, so he'll come over here and show it.
Okay.
That's a product that's almost finished, right? It still has another sprint to go. But we could release that on a different schedule than the rest of ERP because there's no impact on anything else, right? That's something
So that will
we
be
could
available
do.
on any version. It's just a web applet that we could run.
No, I don't think it's on any version. That's a question for Trevor. I'm not sure how the schema looks like because the schema drives the version so much. So, but I think it's going to be a 16 and forward. Actually, I could probably answer that. But you might not have to wait till release 1 or release 2 to get it. You know, you might be able to get it in January, kind of thing. Right? So those are things that we're looking at to kind of, you know, help it because we've got that stake in the ground for December 31st. So we're really we have to deliver on December 31st. So once we get past that, you know, the next date will be up to us based on the scope and the release plan that we have, right? So we can put a little in there, we can put a lot in there, we can, you know, we'll have much more control. And then we'll decide sometime down as we start to go, we look at the sprints, we look at how, so maybe these changes are small, like we've taken lots of small t-shirt ones, and they go pretty easy, right? So it's pretty predictable. We could say, you know, in April, we can have a release. Or they could be really complicated changes and they're taking a long time. And, you know, it's more likely it's gonna be June kind of thing. So from me, all you ever get is a quarter. You know, we plan to release a product at the end of Q2, right? That could be June 30th, right? Like we did with 15.3. When we had our cabin, were you at our cabin in Chicago?
no,
No. So this question came up, you were at our cabinet in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, 15.3 was almost finished, right? It was in the end of October. And we took a decision to extend it a little bit because we wanted to put more bugs fixing into it, so to extend the release date. So everybody's like, whoa, we gotta have it, you know, can we get it in December? I'm like, no, it's Q1, right? That's what the plan that we put forward, I don't know if you remember that discussion, but it's Q1. So I made a joke, I said, well, Q1 could be January first, or it could be
Be
March thirtieth,
31st,
right?
yeah.
And what date did it turn out to be?
That 15.3 launched? I don't remember.
March 30th.
Funny.
So you're never gonna get, because there's all sorts of factors that came in out of our control, you know, blah, 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 blah. So from my perspective, you're gonna get a quarter, but we're gonna be in that quarter, and we'll be able to put that stake in the ground as we're going, and we look at the velocity, and we'll say, yeah, we're gonna finish these work units by here, and then that'll stick. Once we release that date, that'll stick.
Just to jump in, I apologize for just injecting myself in your conversation here. One of the things we wanted to show is that we're getting ready to consider release of the product we've been working on. For recall and analysis, order status, and time-sensitive material tracking within EIQ through a nice, clean, it might be a clean, web-based interface. So I wanted to show it to you guys in the medical industry because I think it's going to be something that would be important for you in terms of recall and analysis. It turns out it's a big deal when things are breaking inside of people for some reason I've never understood. As well as, you know, get your feedback so that we can say, you know, this is where we're moving forward in a good way. We're way off base, what have you. Just kind of I hate saying focus group, but you know, what are your feels on the matter?
So we're about to go on a field trip?
We're going on a field deep dive field trip. All right. So let's talk.
Can we talk DHR after the field trip? You guys already have that discussion?
The
We've
fact
just
that there's not
touched
really
on
one
it.
that can come out of the system electronically, you mean, that discussion? We can go back to it, yeah, we can add more to it.
Let's go on a field trip first.
Yeah.
You know what makes me happy about this conversation?
What's
is
that?
It means I have job security.
Yeah, oh yeah, there you go.
So, it gives me the warm and fuzzies, even though it's not good. It means that we have opportunities to improve.
There are lots of opportunities.
And just as a precursor to this, the UI, there's some issues with the UI and there may be some bugs because it is still in development, so.
Excuses, can you stop?
My team is like furiously concerned that things may be broken in the demo, cause it's just in current dev state,
I
they had
didn't
no idea.
super warn them that this was happening, so
Okay.
how much I trust them.
So the first question everyone wants to know is what version are we gonna have to do to use this?
It's probably gonna be based on 16, but it doesn't necessarily need to be released in band with that. Or the change, there wasn't any schema changes, were there?
No, this is, all of these apps are like recall analysis, order status, and time sensitive materials. They're all just querying current tables. So there's no major infrastructure changes on this. The only major infrastructure changes are a couple more tables for the advanced filtering that we included to be more intuitive, group by, things like that, just user settings, different security options that we have within this app so that you can give your users access to one app or the other or all of them. So those things are just a couple of tables that have been added, but other than that, it's mostly just querying translog. and
So-
other
Just to
tables.
give an insight to the philosophy that we're approaching with dev, as you're aware, there's been some changes in the dev org here. One of the philosophies that we're approaching is we'd like to get to the point where we're not releasing functionality such as this in band with major releases. This is a feature suite at this point. It should be able to move on X amount of versions without any schema changes.
Yeah, because all you're doing is accessing tables that already exist, right?
Querying.
I mean,
but
you're querying a table.
there's checking that needs to be done versus, okay, we query this explicitly, what happens? So there's a lot of design changes behind the scenes to avoid that, but you know, if there's a column that just flat doesn't exist in a previous version, then there may be an exception.
Sure. So, I mean, something like this is a huge win to anybody that worries about lock
Absolutely.
tracing and tracking and things like that in that nature. I mean, to me, not making this available on current products that are already released in the market is
Right.
you know, you can have a quick win with customers to make
Oh,
them
absolutely,
happy.
and that's something we're very
by,
cognizant of. It's
Hey,
just-
look, you can use this on your, you know, version 15 and up or whatever.
But the question becomes, just so you know where my thought process is, I agree with you completely. That's why Courtney, you've heard me ask every single time we talk about it. Is there anything explicit to the schema in 16? And the answer is currently no. Some minor changes, but also where do I want to spend my dev effort? Do I want to spend it checking all the backport, or do I want to spend it getting the functionality done? And the answer is a balanced point of both, right?
Sure.
But right now it's functionality. Let's make sure that it's doing the job it's supposed to,
Okay.
and then we can examine backport.
Okay.
That make sense?
I totally makes sense, I'm just saying.
I
that
agree,
You
but
can,
you're
you
100%
can make a
right.
bunch of customers happy by saying this will work on your version that you're running
It's
now.
mostly what I wanna do is make customers happy. So
Yeah, yeah.
I wanna make marketing angry. That's my goal. But yeah, you're absolutely right. But just so you're aware, that's kind of the philosophy behind it, is trying to get these things out of band so that they're feature suites that aren't necessarily version specific. And you know, I'm hoping you'll see a lot more of that coming
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I think having something like this and doing them that, okay, yeah, this is 3 months after this release, but you know, it's new functionality, I think would be.
So you have my release tree, my release span, this functionality works here, here.
Sure.
So 15, 16, 17,
Gotcha.
this works from here back, going forward.
Okay.
So that'd be the ideal, but again, the focus right now is get the functionality, make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to first, and then making sure it can move back cleanly, cause if we have to say, oh yeah, it works to 15, but it doesn't do what you want, and we have to add schema to do that, that's a different conversation.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and jump into recall and analysis. Let's go through a little scenario here. Can you guys read that?
No,
The E is pointing to the right, I just have my eyes clear. Is it?
You guys need bigger monitors in these offices, I mean, really?
It's only 55 inches.
We have 80s in our
Oh
conference rooms.
man. Oh man.
And our conference rooms are smaller than this, just saying.
Oh man. Now I feel.
But you guys are in
Get a
medical
good
products
tan
for
while you're
software,
sitting in
okay,
the
so yeah.
Yeah, they're both really profitable.
Yeah, they're both
industries,
really
right?
profitable
That's-
businesses, yeah.
That's not an excuse.
All right. So what I'm hoping you guys see here is a little bit of a change to the interface. Is what we're examining moving towards. Hopefully you notice it's a lot cleaner, a little simpler, a little more graphical, less textual. So outside of actual text fields, which are fantastically easy to read on this one. Anybody want to just move closer?
Yeah, data type, sales order number, PO, packing slip, serial number, lot number, FG lot number, and work order number, right?
Yep, so let's take a look at lot number here. Let's say, here's my scenario, I get called up by auditor and says, hey, we're gonna tell you that lot number 123, we found problems with. We need to know, you guys made these parts with it, or what parts did you make with it and who'd you ship them to?
love it.
So here we go. Ring, 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 things are bad, 1, 2, 3. Couple things I want to point out here. This is traversing the entirety of the translog. I want you to notice how rapidly that just went. We're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes to use modern search technologies to get through these data sets a lot faster. I'll show you some stuff, just I'll let you guys watch
So what we've got here listed is
every single item,
every single item that was made with it,
the lot number 1, 2, 3.
okay, where it was consumed,
Mhm.
and then this lot number went into these sub-assemblies. Do these sub-assemblies then go and get consumed in other sub-assemblies and or finished goods?
Right now, it's going to just show what that lot went into, so
Correct.
it'll show that lot went into a sublot. It'll show if that lot went into like a finished good lot, but it should also include the intermediate steps that you're talking about.
Okay.
Of this went into like 456 and then 456 went into 1090.
Okay,
It
so
should show.
we'll
And
show
then-
extended where used.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is our, we call this the Joe's lot control problem, is so yeah, the example is we get a lot and we start manufacturing something, and then halfway through, we realize that there's a quality problem with this raw material we purchased from a
Right.
vendor.
So you need to find out where it went.
Where all the current work orders are that are consuming it, where all the current, the hard allocations would be listed there, right, cause we hard allocate these parts, yeah, that is very odd.
That's the elevator.
It's just a random screaming room, don't ignore it.
This is your safe space, go in there.
That's where the devs for
So-
this product are right now.
Yeah.
This is where they take the customers to beat them up. So we bought this, so this happened recently where we bought 10,000 blister stock from a vendor, and we started having quality issues sealing these blisters, and they were coming back or they weren't staying sealed. So we needed to find out where all 10,000 of those were. And you have no idea how incredibly difficult that is to do in the system now. It's
Right.
damn impossible.
So let's just do this then. let's say I know what item number I made with this guy. I'm just gonna go ahead and group by up here.
Are we supposed to be able to read that screen or is it just me?
Absolutely, you should read
You
it.
guys need bigger TVs. I keep
Where's the remote? Actually, can you hand me the remote?
drop a couple
Turn
grand.
this one on.
Would you mind handing me the remote real quick? I got two options here. There's either a zoom on this guy or
And then this will flush all the way out to what customers purchase that
Yes.
product.
Sure, absolutely.
would walk into
The sales orders that go out to that customer.
It's like you're in my head.
What's that like?
Well, it's empty. There's
Scary.
room for more. There's room for more.
Why do I say that in front of Rob? It's gonna make me cry every time.
Dude, you just open up the door and I walk right in, nothing hard about it.
Let's see what that looks like. That looks fantastic. He just made it smaller. Fantastic. Alright. Sorry, I got one other option to go with here.
Zoom it.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's fancy.
Give my computer a second to catch up. It is extremely pleased with me right now. Whoa.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
it likes you. What are you doing? Oh, and all your icons are gonna be in the weird spots. Don't you hate that?
Honestly, at this point, good lord,
You should maybe open some more things.
I could. Got a little more user legible.
A little bit. Yeah, so then you actually dragged the item number up to the top and then actually grouped it by that.
Yep.
If we were to drag something else up top, would it replace it
Absolutely.
or would it add to it?
It'll
Uh,
add to it, so it'll
And then
cascade
keep
down.
the sort order and then you can click on it to sort your up and downs,
Yep.
right? So you can change it.
Let me reload this real quick because
Okay.
the change of resolution did not play nicely with my. Screen. That's a little better. Perfect. Let's go to lot number. and do 1, 2, 3. Search. Bring it right back. I could have saved that search if I was, thinking ahead. I can scroll around. Here's all my items. I can sort by any one of these guys.
So disposition meaning that it's, okay, so that's stuff we don't do. So it's being dispositioned onto that work order, right?
Yep,
So
so
we're
I
looking
can
at-
then look at all the customers that it went to. Yeah, the resolution did not play nicely with this. And then I could actually go through and filter by item number as well. And add that as a secondary search, or a secondary column, so I can then break it down, or I could have done it the other way around. Or I start with item number. Cool.
So this is literally only showing sort of consumption, it's not showing moves, like I could care less if I moved from this location to that location.
Right, it'll
Or
tell
is
you
it
where
only
it's at.
showing, like, what I'm saying, like, I don't need to see locations in this necessarily, but I wanna know where it was consumed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. I don't need the move transaction.
Right, is it weeding out just move transactions, or is it showing those too?
That was weeding out.
Currently, it does not have
Yeah.
move
Perfect.
transactions.
Yeah, we
Fine,
wouldn't want it
again,
to, yeah.
Right, yeah, I don't,
Unless it was there and you could filter it out immediately.
Customers who tell you they don't know what they're talking about. Don't listen to those customers.
So now I've got it by who I've shipped it to, and then there's lots of transactions that weren't shipped. I don't care about those. I care about the ones that were shipped. So now I have this. I can see everywhere it went to this customer, what packing slips, and I can go from there. I can also feasibly do it by packing slip as well. So I now can just rapidly traverse this tree, figure out what I got, and then at the end of the day, export current tab to Excel. This is a large data set. I'm gonna hit this button because the last time I did it, it freaked out the devs because they were working on it behind the scenes when I did it. I'm pretty sure.
Do it, do it.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna stab me. So
Do it. Do it.
let's see what happens.
Oh, look at the little pretty icon.
It was the Wi-Fi, that was the problem.
I'm back
last
on
time.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna not.
Someone want to toss me that blue hose?
hose, I like that term, I'll have to start using that.
Alan Bradley called their Ethernet backbone blue hose for a long time. It was a combination of DataNet and ControlNet and Ethernet.
Boom. Thanks, sir.
We didn't know we were.
Didn't he? Typically.
No.
No, he said he's disappointed in me. Just dagger through the heart. It's like a dad disappointed.
Rob's tough.
Bear with me for just a moment as this gets synced up. disconnect from Wi-Fi. Let me reset it real quick, just so you guys can see how quickly and easily I can build these queries. Oh yeah, there's the problem. Anybody know about this?
Wait, you can click on him and he does stuff?
It's a game.
Wait, is this only in Chrome?
I didn't.
Wait, hold
It'll
on.
pop back. It'll pop back as soon as you're
Wait, I need to like disconnect my Wi-Fi. This is so loud.
And as soon
That's
as
funny.
as soon as the internet comes back, it will typically just reload itself. But apparently, this is not hooked up. So that was pointless.
You did learn a new game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody learned something new today. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, so the
I'll be
space
done.
bar,
This
he
is the
jumps
one
with the
my
space bar,
And,
okay.
and it's important. He ducks with the down button.
He ducks with the down
This
button?
stuff's
The down button is a duck, okay.
There will be as time progresses. Anyway, so I might go with a slightly smaller data set because the Wi-Fi is not playing nicely with me today. But yeah, that would be the idea. It exports to Excel. Here's an example of what the data looks like. So it'd show all the information, shipment staging, whether it was out or in, where it's going, the packing slip, everything around it.
And if you reorder your columns or you're grouping certain columns, it should also mirror exactly what you have in the web page. So if you've grouped, like in the previous example, you grouped by item number and packing slip,
It's gonna
it
export it
should
that
show
way.
that, yeah.
Sure.
It'll just be spaced out a little differently and you'll have to like
Well,
do
it's
some
very
editing
fast.
within Excel, but it'll try its best to export it exactly how it looks. And if you have multiple tabs open at the top, so let's say you did a search on lot number 123, and then you opened up a second tab and you were looking at a packing slip, if you were to export all of those tabs, it will put them as new sheets within your Excel document, so it'll.
Oh, so
use
you have
what you're doing.
an option to export all
Yes.
tabs, not just the active tab?
Mhm.
Damn.
Just so you guys, oh yeah, that's what the one on the right says, but just to point out, I just added a filter to rapidly cut down the data set. I could filter on any one of these fields with ranges or whatnot, just in case I need to tighten it up. I didn't show that in the last group, I should have.
And it's mirroring the advanced filtering that we have within Enterprise IQ. So that filter button will give you if you want to range on certain fields or whatever you're looking for.
So there we go. I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
Here's
so-
every serial number, every FD lot number that was shipped to with these things. They included all the packing slip information, but it's all there.
That would be freaking awesome.
So here's the future.
Location,
And
the
let's try to make it
beach.
the
I
past.
like it.
Oh yeah, these are
Oh.
testing, so.
I forgot to give
The disclaimer.
You guys
Oh.
use much nicer things
I
than
like
I
it.
do in my testing.
No,
So you're
we
fine.
don't. We
There's
had to
other
request
things.
this.
Yeah.
There's other things.
We had to go to one of the testers. Hey, Dan, we need to see ones that don't have swear words in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Can you give us some examples?
Sure.
Yeah, I have some things in my database that are not very appropriate.
But yeah, like you can see it kept the shading to show you that you had like subgroups of everything. So it's doing its best to mirror what you had in the web page. So there's not a huge difference if you export it and give it to somebody who is also working on it. It doesn't look like gibberish.
And then the most fun part is I can actually save my search. So if I have a work number, that's, it is pretty cool. I think so.
How many different saved searches can you have?
As many as you want.
Just two.
That's
That,
and
that very well could have been the answer.
No, no.
and safe searching is per user. So if I log into Track and Traces like C rolled in, I should only see the searches that I've saved. There
Yes, that
is
sounds good.
the beginnings of sharing searches between each person. So if I wanted to share my search with you, then my search will also show up in your list of safe searches.
And that was a flippant response. I apologize for that. But
That's cool.
That went back to
That's
the
cool. I
Henry
get it.
Ford thing. That
I'm as flippant
you
as
can
they
have
come.
other color, whatever color car you want, as long as it's black.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, safe search.
So if we were to search on item number here,
We create a new search.
sure.
Because that's an option.
Is this going to search?
Don't have item number right now.
Huh.
These
Okay.
are the initial data types that we have.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, so. Why would you, I'm trying to think, what would you. If you wanted to see all the transactions, just go to the translog idiot, right?
Well, the idea is to make that a little more user friendly.
Can you drop that down again to your data type?
It's much easier to read this time.
So we have sales order number, the PO number on there is the PO number that appears on the sales order, so if you're somebody who works with that instead of the order number, you can do that. Packing slip, serial, lot, FG lot, and work order number, and the idea was to keep it general at first,
Okay,
and then while you're doing your searching, you can find the more specific parts.
the serial number is the label serial number,
Yes.
or not sick, but label serial.
Yes.
I was gonna say, cause item was in a lower level drop down, right? Once you,
Yeah.
in here,
Once you
item
get your
is.
results, the
yeah, yeah,
item
yeah.
number will populate based off of those general.
Those
starting
item numbers that are
points.
showing, are they all active and or inactive items?
They should be whatever is in translog, so if it's active or inactive, it'll show there.
That was my question when we were gonna pull up, and I thought we could search by items, is it gonna search by any active and inactive?
Ah, you were setting a trap.
I was.
like you.
I wasn't setting a trap, I was just verifying, is what I was trying to do. So work orders, it's gonna hit historical and, right,
It's looking at whatever work order
unit
was
and
there.
across them both, so we can get archived work orders. Same thing with sales orders, right, it's
Mhm.
getting archived,
The only thing it won't catch is if you completely delete out
a delete and,
orders,
yeah,
then
just a
they're gone
delete and
forever.
not a delete and archive, but we can't do that, because,
Well,
well, you're done.
This.
if I delete the work order, it still stays in the translog, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then you won't be able to get the historical information, like if you clicked on that work order and then.
Well, we don't, but, I mean, I'd just be amazed if you deleted a work order, it went to the translog and blew away all those transactions, I mean,
Did you know if you, when you used to delete a substitute, a bomb with a substitute, it blew the substitute away in the previous version of the system?
That was extra though, that was extra.
Well, that was a big problem for us, that was we need to fix this, like, do this,
it's really rare for us to do a substitution, cause.
not us,
Yeah,
cause
we-
you talk about how often we change our products.
Yeah, but here's an example. I just went through and grabbed just a super generic lot. I sorted by work center so I can, or grouped by work center so I can see every work center this was ever used in. And there's a fair amount of them. I've expanded that out. I have multiple items. I can then actually deep dive into what was produced with this lot number.
In that work center. Oh.
And pretty much anything that's blue as a deep dive option.
Work centers, you're talking about all type of work centers?
I don't know why there'd be any change, but yes, I think there's multiple types referenced in here.
Okay.
Fact assembly one,
Okay, perfect.
generic,
Yep.
injection. That's the other thing we've been doing is building out test plans regarding every integration point, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Sure.
To say, okay, now we focused in the past on verifying existing issues. Now let's take it to this next step. Let's look at where it touches so that we're bringing it out.
Touch that all correctly.
And see if what downstream effects are created. I mean, that's part of the philosophy we're again bringing to the table here is that's breaking away from I hate saying single source of truth, but if you look at the way our code's built, there's a lot of packages and stored procedures that correlate. So, you know, that's great. It makes it go quick, it makes it work well, but it also creates downstream effects.
Yeah.
So we're looking at what it's going to take to break that. And we got some ideas to make it so that it's less correlated, less closely correlated and more loosely correlated. So that you maintain the effects of the speed without the detrimental effects to testing. Lots of fun stuff occurring, in my opinion. So yeah, I can deep dive in on any of these guys. I keep expecting to see a poop in here. It's going to happen.
A poop
It's mostly panda stuff.
That's
Very
good.
good.
panda.
No, when when I asked the lead the test lead on the project for an example, the first one he gave me the lot number was poop. Like, no, that's
Probably not a good one to
in
use.
case you guys don't believe me.
Well, at least if you give it the emoji, our mobile edition gives you the emoji.
Oh, he cleaned them up.
Yeah.
I was wondering why I hadn't seen anything. Ah, man, you give Dan a high five for me. Cool.
Quick
So,
scrub.
yeah, that's where we're headed with this. Now again, there's a graphic I love to show people. I already showed you, Hila, but the idea of an MVP.
A what?
MVP.
Minimum viable product.
That is not at all what I wanted.
Everyone has a
That's
plan
might be
until
the
they're
real
punched in
MVP.
the face. It's interesting.
all plans are set till the first arrow flies.
That's a great graph.
So this is the process we're bringing to bear here. Is that's why you're seeing. That's why we're talking to you now and not after the product's released. Is to say, historically, this is the path we followed. We went from getting your requests and then executing them to the best of our ability and knowledge, and then delivering your request sometime in the future. That has, as you guys are well aware, very often led to not getting explicit what you asked for, not being able to react to changes in what your process was in the midstream. So here's what we're aiming for. Every time we have an iteration, we're trying to deliver a minimum viable product. It will at least do something. Does it have item numbers? No. Does it have the subcomponents directly? No, you can get there, but it doesn't do it the way you just described. But that's why we're showing it to you. We've given you a skateboard. Now we want to get you to a scooter. We want to get you to a bike. We want to get you to a motorcycle because we want to increase the speed, make it faster. And then maybe right here you go, well, guys, I have to fly to work. I have to go different direction entirely. This is where we say, okay, well, it's easier to pivot from a motorcycle to a plane than it is from a full car after months and months of time, especially if it happens earlier on. But that's the idea.
So you made an interesting statement a minute ago about how sometimes the product that's being delivered is kind of not what the customer has requested or
Yeah.
what the customer envisioned when
That's
they
what I
made the
heard you guys
request.
saying yesterday, loud and clear.
Yeah. So where along this process are you getting the customer involved to review? So I haven't had an approved SER or idea in the system in a long time. So we've always been, in the past, once we discovered that we weren't always getting things the way that we intended them, we were like, if we're putting in an SER and we need to do co-op development and we need to see it for. So is that still happening, and how early are you getting people involved
This
with
is the
that
glory
process?
part of the agile development process. If there's something that intrinsically tied to what a customer needs, it's
Mhm.
feasible that it can be brought down to the biweekly review level.
Okay.
If
That would
that's
be
where we
great.
get
Yeah.
to,
We
there's
talked
going to
about
be.
the sprint in 2 weeks. At the end of those 2 weeks, we do a review. And what Trevor's saying, we're building something specifically for you. We could bring you in at that review and say,
Okay.
here's where we're at.
My
we-
goal is to
we-
never build anything specifically for one person.
Sure, but,
the
you know-
reality is that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
you're gonna have some sort of mechanism in place that this is for customer A, they
Or
need
it's
to,
super important to you. could be
yeah,
with the-
you
Yeah.
talked about this, you sponsored
Right,
this, you
right,
are,
right.
and then let's get
You're
them
a primary
involved to look at it.
stakeholder,
Yeah.
have a look at it, every sprint review every 2 weeks.
So that would be
It's fine.
awesome. That
We'll
would,
show it to you. right?
yeah,
That's
that-
what we review every 2 weeks, all of these.
that would make me incredibly happy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
my
a
goal is to
great
make you
improvement.
happy.
Yeah,
That's where we're here.
Rob, and along these same lines, when you are making changes to certain modules, like yesterday you mentioned that, remind me what your company name is?
Also,
LSI, they're gonna be working with you on the quality module. But what we wanna also make sure, and no offense to
no,
LSI, is just to make sure that, you're not, okay, so you've got this one customer's input, now we're not just running
absolutely
for
right.
them,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely right. We talked about this actually earlier before you got in here, was that happened frequently in the past, and we wanna avoid that in the future.
And
So I don't
that's-
want one person to drive the entire requirements, cause we wind up often with a subset, right?
So, but there is a challenge to that, how do you balance that?
Yeah,
We accommodate that in a couple of different fashions. We involve members, we're moving towards involving members of sales and professional services as well in these discussions to make sure that they are getting covered and it's not like, whoa, this was for one person, but 90% of my other customers are gonna hate this.
Right.
Cause we couldn't have every customer involved in every discussion. That would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Completely ineffective.
anarchy,
Anarchy is a better word.
thank you, that's what I'm hearing. I got
Oh,
the
that's
$10
why.
words, I got those $10 words that you need every now and then.
Why not have the $10 word? So, yeah, that's the idea. So again, I'm speaking more towards the dev process than anything specific to this, but I figured it'd be a good time to discuss it and show you guys what we're aiming and what we're doing.
okay.
Cool. So any other questions on this module now that I've,
What about the other two? You showed us
no,
one
I'll show you
button.
those. Yeah, of course.
The other two are catered to a very different audience. So this one is catered to the person who's like dealing with an audit or dealing with something that needs to be fixed right away. Really important. Order status is targeted for your
It'll warn you before you go too far astray.
order status is targeted more towards like customer service managers who are using the sales order module currently to report updates on like where that work order is at or how much they've shipped. It's just taking that information and making it much more easier to work with in this web format. So a user can enter in a sales order number or that PO number if their customer calls and says, hey,
Oh,
what's up
That's why
with
I'm illiterate.
my sales order? And they can search it once you do that, and
Once I
you'll
type the right
see
things.
all the line items related to it. They can select that item, and then they can easily toggle back and forth between the work order information that's out there and how it's working. If you have real time connected, then that percent complete will update based off of what's currently running.
What
And
if it's
then you
multiple
also-
bomb? What if it's multi-layer bomb?
Right now, it's just going to show that top level information. I don't know for sure, just because it's been a while since we've been able to really like regression test this. It may include the lower level ones as well, but again, it's going to only show that percent complete if you're hooked up to real time. But other than that, it'll show any information that you production reported once you've done that there. I believe it does show sub bombs, but I have to check on
Because
that.
right now from the sales
Mhm.
order screen,
Yeah.
we can at the bottom right click and then just see that with the flags and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So, I mean, not to downplay this is really nice, but this is a viewer. Everything you showed us right now, we can do in a more crude way through the system right now. This is, views it in a nicer way, which is great.
Puts it
Like I
on
said.
your web application too, so you don't actually have to be, all you need is a VPN connection to the office, or if it's publicly served.
Right, but there isn't really added features here that we didn't have before. It's a faster way, a more
It's
elegant
more to
way
Excel.
to get to the same information. I just wanna make sure I'm not missing anything.
Right.
And not to put it down, cause like I
No, it's
said,
okay, you hate it,
beautiful.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I don't see the, and obviously, we're not updating the status of our orders to our customers, we ship 100% of our products that day, but you can just go in and look at that in the system in sales orders and see when you've released products to a customer. I don't think that can't be that hard to find that data, right?
It's not.
Yeah.
But this is nice. This is very nice.
Now you're not consuming a full EIQ license to do it.
Yeah, we have 50 of them anyway.
Well, we don't, and like I said, like everything else that was mentioned in the last almost 24 hours, I'm just waiting to see what the price tag is, so I know if I can get excited, or if I'm gonna go, oh, okay, it's beyond my price range, so never mind.
Rob, how much is it gonna cost?
For you? Today?
Today,
Just today, it's on sale.
Before I finish, let's go back up.
And what was the other option? The other
Time sensitive.
The other is time sensitive materials, and it is going to be pulling in information that does exist in other places of the system. It's more just that it's doing so altogether in this one web app. So you can enter in an item number or a manufactured item like the BOM number. And what it'll do is it'll pull in all of your location information so you can see which locations have expiring. This is all around things that are about to expire.
That's nice.
So you can configure a days out type of
So, yeah,
thing, so you can say like, I see my yellow category expiration locations as 10 days out from today. And if you configure that within the settings, it'll mirror those colors on here, and that's the only color you'll see is just a like yellow or red pretty much.
we have a crystal that does this, but this is.
Sorry to say, Crystal Report to do that can't be that difficult either, right?
Yeah, so here you can configure whatever you want your range to be from today based off of that expiration date that's on the item. That's calculated currently in the system. And then once you've selected like a location, the next screen that will pop up once Trevor puts some stuff in
Am I doing
here.
this fast enough for you, Cody?
Save.
This button right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now click OK. Now click here.
This one?
Just go back to the module.
Oh, perfect.
And you'll probably have to
Oh, 11:30, I did not put it anywhere near far enough out, I apologize.
That's okay, but if you click on one of those location, like that first line, then you can then search on what orders would potentially be affected by that. So you can search what sales orders would be potentially affected by that expiring that expiring material. And if you're looking at a raw material in this
I was
view,
gonna say, does it filter
will
down
look
to the
at
raw
the-
material level?
Yeah.
Wow.
so in here, the orders that you're looking at, if you searched on a raw material like let's say that this material is a raw material, the sales orders that are coming up are all sales orders that consume that raw material.
That is cool.
And same with work orders as well, all work orders that are consuming that raw material.
So not only is it expiring, but because it's expiring, these sales orders are effed.
Yeah, it's more of just a tool for you to make decisions. So you can look at, okay, well, I have these sales orders that are coming out around that date. Are they gonna be screwed because this one's now expiring more sooner than I thought it was going to be?
That's cool.
I don't wanna be in the business of telling you what you have to do. I wanna be in the business of giving you the information so you can make intelligent decisions, and then, using those intelligent decisions to tell you what you have to do.
Can you just say, show me anything that is expired or about to expire for all parts?
No, you have to start with an item or a BOM number. Right now, as it currently is.
You're looking for more of a dashboard view of what's coming up today that's
Well, I've
going
got
to
a
be.
report that we run, well, actually, it's an SQL based on. one of
Right,
the
you could say,
reports.
show me all expired material,
Right.
where it is, and
Yeah.
spit it out.
What we find is if we have to, if somebody needs to click and open a report, a file, or click, then there is about 60% less likely that would get done, so I'll do this later. I'll move to whatever is right straight.
But if it's dashboard right in front of you,
So a dashboard would be that.
something like that lean towards the analytics tools we've been talking about in our BI dashboard line of business tools.
Yeah, that's something that could just be created as a dashboard
Right.
in that, right?
It's funny you say that, I agree.
Expiring lots or whatever,
To
yeah.
tell users to have to run a report, their eyes roll in their head,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
gotta
just
wait
Even
for
though
Chris
it's
to
Query
run
everything in
run a
FG
report,
multi
still they
that's
go,
got an
They gotta
expiry date
remember,
in
they gotta go,
30
they gotta
days or
click,
whatever,
and
it's
somebody
very
just
easy.
called them talked
And
to
just
them,
return
because
everything and
even
link
in
it to
emails,
ARI
we
and
moved
BT
away
and
from
basically got the whole thing done.
to SQL, because the SQL, it just smack in your face. You
Yeah,
can't
it's
not
it's
see
hard to
it.
argue with that, with an alert that sends it out
Yeah,
as an
we'll do that
SQL
too, yeah.
statement.
And
Yeah,
if
without having to
there's
open
no
it.
data set coming back, then that
It
doesn't
doesn't
run,
send.
then it's less
Yeah.
notice.
I can put a rule in Outlook that'll just filter that right out. Empty body, kill it.
No, it doesn't even send it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
IQ
If you do an
alert
alert with a
Yeah.
SQL query and there's no
Yeah.
results, it doesn't send at all, which is great.
So that's what we do, but then it's.
Unless people
straight
trust that the
face.
query wasn't broken, I didn't get an email, does that mean, I think
Yeah.
people will like that,
We've had to teach.
So any other questions on these modules right now before I turn you back to DHR? Cause I know Hila's about ready to kill me for showing this to her twice.
Nah.
She's asked questions though.
No, you provided really good
Yeah.
feedback.
Alright guys, thank you guys very much for your time, appreciate the
Thanks,
feedback.
man. No, that's
Courtney, I
good.
think captured most of that to go berate the team with.
That's great, this is great stuff. for
So you're
people in
Courtney's
this-
the product owner
this room.
for the MES swim lanes at IQ. She's the one who brings the work into them and works with them to make sure it's being delivered appropriately. I didn't introduce her when I walked in, I should have. I assume everybody
Hey
knows.
guys, we give you very honest, because we feel like we're part of the team.
You are, that's why I
right? And
appreciate
if
you.
you sugarcoat stuff, then we're not necessarily
I have
doing you. the
zero
service.
issue with anything anybody said at all here.
Okay,
That's
so
good
I just
advice.
don't wanna.
No, I don't take anything
We're-
Okay,
to
it's
heart,
not,
no.
it's
Yeah.
like, we live and breathe your product,
Mhm.
okay, your product is our business.
Mhm.
Your product is doing well, we thrive, when your product is having issues, we suffer, right? You guys sneeze, we get a pneumonia, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we really appreciate of what you do, and we're just here to make you better.
I appreciate it, thank you so much. I'll leave you guys.
As always,
to
Hila, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Trevor.
Sitting in a room with you guys for the first time.